Reeves is going to have a kissing booth at this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the park's hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner, says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Yeah, moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine a Scouser say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour Ghost Train.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 6. It is Wednesday the 25th of June, ladies and gentlemen, and we are all still here. Yes, indeed, there has not been World War III. There has not been any massive breakouts of violence over the week and overnight, I should say. And here we are, ready to give you all the news that is fit to print and some of the stuff that isn't fit to print as well. Front page is all pretty much on the same story this morning. British jets to carry nuclear warheads is what it says on the front page of the Telegraph. Return to a Cold War era as defence strategy warns we must prepare for a threat to the United Kingdom. UK to match China and Russia with nuclear jets, it says on the front page of the Times. And of course, front page of the I newspaper, the UK buys jets with nuclear weapons to create a deterrent from air and sea. Now, apparently, according to Keir Starmer, we need to be on a war footing. According to Keir Starmer, we are already on a war footing. According to Keir Starmer, we're going to buy some submarines, or we're going to build some submarines, but that could be some time away. So instead, we're going to get some jets. So we're on a war footing, but we haven't got any submarines and we haven't got any jets really to speak of, so we're going to have to buy those from the United States of America. You might remember, of course, that we were told when we were going to build up our defences that this would create massive growth for the UK economy, because this would create massive numbers of jobs, thousands of jobs, said Keir Starmer, we were going to build. But unfortunately, it turns out that we're buying these jets in from America. They're going to carry American nuclear missiles, so they're not really going to be any jobs created at all. You might want to ask Donald Trump what he thinks this government is up to. Have a listen.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I think we do understand that. And Britain is on a war footing, but they don't know what they're doing. There we are. That's the word for the White House, ladies and gentlemen. Theo Usherwood's here with us. We'll be running through some of the stories that are also around. It's a big revolt coming to Keir Starmer's government, which could be the end of Rachel Reeves, by the way. Front page of the Daily Mail. Humiliating threat to Starmer's authority. The Prime Minister is stunned, they say, by a revolt on the flagship benefits cuts bill, as more than 120 Labour MPs are vowing to vote against it. I mean, despite the fact that they've got a massive majority, this could bring down the government. It really could. I'm not joking. This all happens next week. Next Tuesday is the vote. Front page of The Sun, they do part 2 of their fantastic exclusive yesterday about a load of migrants who come here, and within hours of being in this country, having just literally stepped off a boat somewhere near Dover, they're working for Deliveroo, working for Just Eat, working for Uber Eats, working for one of those many food delivery services on electric bikes. The Home Office has vowed to target the racket after yesterday's investigation nation. Meanwhile, asylum seekers continue to brazenly cycle out of taxpayer-funded hotels wearing those uniforms. Incredible stuff. Meanwhile, a couple of other stories to mention. There's a new Borders chief, apparently, not the one you thought was the Borders chief, the guy who was the Supremo of the Borders, but there's another guy that we've never heard of. He's come out and said to the House of Lords, we can't smash the gangs. I don't know why Keir Starmer ever said that we could. It's a really stupid idea. You can see the migrant tracker there. I still think that's behind the times. I think we're over 43,000 now, so we need to get the abacus out and add up some more, please. Thank you very much indeed. 41,642 is what we're claiming. I think it's a bit higher. We'll bring you more on that, of course. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. And so, here we are, Wednesday, the middle of the week. There's an awful lot going on. Incredible stories to tell you about all the way through today for the next 4 hours. Theo Rushworth's here. Theo, very good morning to you.
Very morning.
I guess we should start with this story about the jets, shouldn't we? Because Keir Starmer keeps telling us that we're on a war footing. He keeps telling us that, you know, we have to be prepared for war. We're going to be building up our missile systems. We're going to be building up our defences. We're going to spend 5%, apparently he says, of GDP by 2035. Very long way off. But he told us, did he not, at the beginning of all of this, when he started ramping up the kind of chat about, you know, we're going to get more submarines, we're going to use defence as a method of growing the economy, more jobs are going to be created. Well, he's not creating any jobs here because he's buying in missiles and jets from America.
The only plus point you could say, good morning, Mike, is I think that this will, of course, go some way to getting in the good books of Donald Trump.
Yes.
Of course, Donald Trump has singled us out for a better than average trade arrangement, especially on steel. Well, actually on primarily actually on cars.
Yeah.
Steel's yet to come. But you know, by buying in these jets, these 12 F-35As, which are capable of carrying what's known as a tactical nuclear bomb. That's different from a strategic nuclear bomb, which just kills fewer people.
Right.
You'd like to think that we've somehow curried favour with the US president, but what I find...
but that's not what he said he was going to do.
No, it's not what he said. It is not, Mike,
as ever with Keir Starmer, he says one thing, he makes a big deal about the fact that he was going to create thousands of jobs, he said he was going to create, by building up our defences. He said it was going to kick-start the economy and it was going to absolutely translate into growth.
The whole 100%.
That was the whole point of it, right?
Yeah. That was the whole justification for taking the money away from international development and putting it into defence to hit the target. And yes, you're quite right, that's not going to happen in this respect.
So what you mean, he was not telling the truth again? Surely not.
So what has turned out to be the reality is different to what was promised.
Yes, that's like lying, isn't it? It's a similar. You're very good at this. I mean, you do say it very well. It makes it sound just not quite so bad. But basically, told no more lies, and we're buying the jets in, and we're buying the missiles in, and I don't know how soon we're going to get these jets. I haven't seen a timeline, but you know, we're still not really on a war footing, are we?
No, we're not on a war footing. I think the other thing is that they've committed to, you know, he's going to sign this pledge to hit defence spending 5% of GDP by 2035. Of that, 3.5% is going to be made up of actual defence spending. The other stuff is going to be on national security.
Well, it was called a con yesterday. Yesterday, people were calling it a con.
But we don't know where the money's coming from. They still won't say where the money's coming from.
Well, we know where it's not coming from because they don't have it. So they're going to have to nick it from somewhere.
They're going to have a review in 2029.
Right.
And then
they won't be here in 2029. You know, it's all BS. I'm sorry, I nearly said the bad word there at 6:30 in the morning, 6:09 in the morning. You know, they haven't got the money. They're making pledges that they can't keep. They know when they announce things that they aren't telling the truth. You know, how else can you describe this government except as a bunch of complete and utter charlatans and liars? So I don't ask you to confirm that for me. I'll take your non-confirmation as affirmation that it's right.
So they are. This is problematic because they made a great play of saying, you know, Liz trusts economics, trustonomics, didn't make the sums add up, didn't put the sums in front of the OBR, and Keir Starmer is going to sign a pledge to spend billions on defence, and he hasn't been able to say, and he won't say where the money's coming from. It's on the never, basically. And that is
And they're also moving lots of things into one basket, which are not necessarily military spending, like the spending on intelligence that they're sort of lumping in, like the fact that they're going to, you know, add bits in from over here, bits in from over there to make the 5%. And in any event, they're not even going to reach 2.5% until at least 2027, right? So we're nowhere near even 2.5%, are we?
No. So we're at 2.3%.
Right.
2.5% by, as you say, 2027.
2027. So already we're talking 2 years away. Let's have a look at. Let's just remind ourselves of what he said 3 weeks ago. This is 3, count them, weeks ago. Keir Starmer on defence.
I can announce today that we're going to build at least 6 new munitions factories in the United Kingdom, generating over 1,000 jobs. We will build thousands of new long-range weapons in the United Kingdom to boost European deterrence, supporting around 800 more jobs.
Sorry, so far I haven't seen any of that. British fighter jets that carry nuclear warheads for the first time since the Cold War era after a landmark deal with the United States.
Yes.
So thousands of jobs for the United States. Hundreds of jobs for the United States in ballistics. Brilliant.
Yes.
Why does he keep lying? What's wrong with him?
Well, I think what the Prime Minister is trying to do, and it hasn't quite come round to the fact that he's made good on that promise that he played from 3 weeks ago.
Right. Well, none of it's happened, has it?
None of it's happened,
right.
no.
Let's just be frank.
It may still come good, but you're quite right to point out that these bombs, these particular tactical nuclear bombs that we're buying in these jets come from America. And that is, of course...
Is there a time frame on these jets, by the way? I've not seen it. They're going to be based at RAF Marham, because as Bill from Cheshire points out, he says, hope they're not going to be based at Bryce Norton, where obviously the security ain't that great.
No.
You'll have to improve the fencing. You know, why don't they just create a few dozen jobs with people who can build a fence? That would be a good thing to start with our defences, never mind the intercontinental ballistic missiles. How about a fence that we can stop protesters from getting in? You know what I mean?
But it's a serious point. I mean, it's security.
It is.
Security. I mean, this is.
Well, they still haven't figured. They still haven't told us who's to blame for that particular, security breach, have they?
No.
They've arrested the people who were from Palestine Action,
and they're going to prescribe Palestine
and they're
Action.
going to prescribe them, and that's all fine. But they haven't explained how they managed to get in through the perimeter fence in the first place.
Well, they just broke the chain link.
Yeah, but how they were not, why they were not, apprehended, why nobody saw them, why there was no CCTV, why there was nobody on guard of the planes. They've got a lot of questions to have an answer. Keir Starmer has not been in the House of Commons and will not be there today because presumably he's still at the NATO summit over in the Netherlands. So
and he wasn't there. He wasn't in there. He wasn't there for Prime Minister's questions last week.
So he has yet to answer questions as to how it's possible that if we're on a war footing, people could just wander in willy-nilly into an RAF station at Bryce Norton, spray paint some planes, cause millions of pounds worth of damage and walk away and have to be apprehended later. They haven't explained that. They haven't explained who's to blame. They haven't explained who is going to take a fall for it. They haven't explained which commander of that particular arena or that particular base is going to be sacked for it. We don't know anything.
No, we don't. And it's
not good enough.
It was a major security breach, and
massive.
And the other thing I'd say is that on Palestine Action, if you keep on, they may not have appeased this particular group, but if you keep on allowing marches through London where they shout, this, I mean, it's just
hands off Iran
racist,
and worse,
racist,
anti-Semitic
stuff. And you allow this stuff to happen, don't be surprised if they suddenly turn up, if they escalate it, because they're able to push the envelope and nothing comes back. They're not meeting any force.
Right.
And so if actually Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper had taken a much tougher stance towards this, and the Metropolitan Police, and actually started arresting people when they started...
I mean, to be fair, the police did arrest people yesterday, they did say before the march actually happened, we would like to be able to ban it, but we can't because the government won't prescribe them.
Yes, and now they're prescribing them, but it's a little bit like after the state, the horses bolted and they're closing the stable door, and that's why we find ourselves in this situation. Think back to those Extinction Rebellion protests, right, where they closed down motorways.
Right.
It was when they started sending the ringleaders to jail for 4 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It stopped.
It stopped, yeah.
Because suddenly they were dealing with it properly.
Yeah.
And they've just appeased this particular wing because they're scared of their own vote or a large section of their own.
And
vote.
they're scared of their own party. Because
and
let's face it, the Labour Party, and I might as well say it, I've been saying it pretty much all the way through since they've got in July. You know, he says he's rid the Labour Party of anti-Semitism. They haven't.
No.
There's plenty of people on the back benches of the Labour Party and on the front benches, quite frankly, of the Labour Party who think that Israel shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people who believe that in the Labour Party.
And that's
a problem.
And that is the problem. And you've now got Labour MPs. I saw a Labour MP come out.
Yeah.
Labour MPs coming out and saying, "Oh, actually, we're Palestine Action." And you know why they're doing it?
We are all Palestine Action. That was what's her face, wasn't it? Zara Sultana.
She's the one I think who's lost the whip.
Yeah.
But she was a Labour MP. But you're going to end up in a situation. The reason they're doing it because in 2 weeks, if time they do it, they're going to go to prison.
Yeah.
And there's prison for up to 14 years. And this group claims to be a charity, and it says, "Oh, we rely on small donations," but they won't publish their books. They won't publish.
Well, yesterday the Times published a story saying that they could be being funded by the Iranian regime.
Yeah, but
that's the belief,
and it might be well through proxies. That's the view being held in the Home Office.
Yeah.
And that you know, if you've got people, you know, organising, just breaking into our defence bases, threatening our national security, and then suddenly they look for support and they have it there in parts of the Labour Party.
Yeah, it is extraordinary, absolutely ridiculous. This from Tony, who says this: President Trump is fleecing Europeans. 5% of GDP on defence spending means America wins. Again, America's laughing because that money will pour into America and out of Europe. And I mean, you know, you could take that and run with it. There's absolutely no question that that's happening. I don't know how much we're going to spend on these jets that we're supposed to be buying in, but if you remember,
£80 million.
80 million.
80 million. That must be it's per jet.
That must be 80 million per jet.
So 8 times 12, close to £1 billion.
Close to £1 billion, which we nicked off the pensions, of course. So well done. You know, let's nick pensions money and buy some war jets for it. But the thing is this, right? They're going to build submarines, but they still haven't said how many. You might remember John Healey couldn't answer that question when he was asked it. He doesn't know how much they cost. He doesn't know how many we're ordering. Up to 6, possibly, but as few as 1.
And the other thing is,
so it's all over the place.
I get these big ideas when it comes to defence. Yeah. You have your jets, you've got your submarines, and we're going to stand up to Russia. But I saw a cartoon. It was a cartoon in one of the papers, and it was I think it was Matt cartoon. It was like it was supposed to be a couple of Russian commanders just saying, "Well, what are they going to do if we arrive by a small boat?"
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. and it's a funny cartoon, but there's a point to it.
Yeah,
you know, we've got thousands of people arriving every week by a small, every month by a small boat. What's it, 40,000 you got on your coin?
Well, I mean,
since he became prime minister,
we are looking at certainly upwards of 42,000, possibly 43,000 now. We've got about a week to go until July the 4th is the 1 year anniversary. I'm still saying we could reach 50.
So 50,000 by the end of the year?
No, 50,000 by July the 4th.
Yeah.
Look at the weather.
Very, very possible. And if you are in the FSB or if you are in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and you want to get people into this country to cause havoc...
That's how you send them.
That's how you send them.
Right.
Easy peasy. Just drop them off at the north coast of France and they can come in and they can get accommodation.
And what are the chances?
They could get a job according.
We'll talk about the front page of the Sun in a minute. But what are the chances of somebody coming in who's Russian that wouldn't even be figured out to be Russian? No. They could just pretend to be Albanian or pretend to be, Serbian because they're allowed to come in for free, no problem at all. And as far as Iranians are concerned, we've already know that loads of them have come in from Iran, apparently claiming that they're, being persecuted by the regime. But you don't know if that's actually true because they don't check it out.
No, and they'll throw their paperwork away and then they'll get a lawyer to go and represent them at vast expense. And we've got no idea. And we had a scheme where actually these people, we didn't manage to make it work. It was called the Rwanda scheme. It may never have worked, but it was there and it did act as some sort of deterrent.
There's certainly evidence that it was acting as a bit of a deterrent even before it started.
Yeah, the numbers came down from 46,000 down to 29,000, 22 to 23. So, but ultimately, the government needs to be dealing with the problem that's right in front of it. In terms of national security, I would have thought the obvious problem is, I understand what Keir Starmer is doing. We all need to understand what Keir Starmer is doing in the threat of Russia and Iran and China as well. But actually, there's a real problem much, much closer to home.
There really is. I mean, Starmer keeps talking about secure at home, strong abroad. Neither of those things is true. He's over in the Netherlands on the NATO conference. Nobody really cares what he thinks. I mean, that's the bottom line. We're here with Theo Usherwood. More to come, including part 2 of that incredible story yesterday from The Sun about the Deliveroo racket that's going on. Not just Deliveroo, it's Just Eat, it's Uber Eats, it's all sorts of different companies who are employing basically illegal migrants literally hours after they get off the dinghies and paying them up to £1,000 a week. Extraordinary stuff. 20 past 6.
We had single days where there were 12,000 illegal border encounters. 12,000 people who weren't supposed to be here. In the entire month of May, we had zero. No new law. No new like spending in the sense of like we didn't, like new mass. I'm sure they moved some money around, you know what I mean? But just using the people we have and the border and the laws we have just by enforcing the law. That's all we did.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:23. I'm Mike Graham. It is Wednesday, of course. It is the 25th of June, believe it or not. I mean, we're getting ever closer to July. Wimbledon week starting next week. Today, I think, is the first day people start going to Glastonbury. I actually said this yesterday. It's partly in jest, but probably not in jest. You know, how soon before we see an Iranian flag flying
Hezbollah flags.
in Hezbollah flags and Hamas flags flying at Glastonbury. I mean, I'd like to see those people getting arrested. I'd like to see a lot of people getting arrested. Just seen a great tweet from the United States where they're currently building a place called Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, which is where they're going to be putting illegal migrants, right? So they're going to put them in a swamp, basically, which is a new facility built in the middle of a swamp, surrounded by alligators. So if they try and escape, they're just going to get eaten. Now that sounds to me like a secure unit, right? What do? We put them in hotels so that they can cycle around delivering food everywhere. Second day of the Sun expose has got migrants working illegally as food delivery riders from asylum hotels are to be arrested and have their bikes seized in a major crackdown by the Home Office. This is after the story was published yesterday. You know, why did they need the Sun to tell them this was going on? Because anybody with half a brain who worked at the Home Office should have known, shouldn't they?
So this is day 2 of this. This is day 2 of the Sun's expose, and they've gone down to hotels and they've filmed these migrants. Just so we're clear, if you arrive in this country, you do not buy a small boat and you're
Right.
having your asylum application processed, you do not have the right to work.
Right.
You are not allowed to work under any circumstances.
That would be illegal then?
It would be illegal.
Right.
If you are granted right to remain in this country or refugee status, you therefore have the right to work and earn money. But whilst your application is being assessed, you are given a small stipend. It does cost you taxpayer money. You are given hotel accommodation or put up in a house of multiple occupancy, but you do not have the right to work.
Right.
And what the Sun did, great expose, fantastic investigation, which came out yesterday, has found that, of course, what these individuals are doing, many of them men arriving on small boats, is they're going to stay in these hotels. They are then using Facebook to link up with somebody who does have the right to work in the UK, and then earning money on their account, and then they are paid, they rent the account, and then they are paid money out of that account, so they earn money, effectively working for the likes of Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats and all the rest of it. Now, if I remember back, if it was David Blunkett who was Home Secretary, and he'd had day one of this story on the front page of The Sun, he would have basically picked up the phone and he would have told his officials and to tell the Metropolitan Police, we would know where these hotels are,
down there.
Get everybody down there. That's today's operation. Whatever else you were going to do, forget it. Don't do it. All you're going to do is you're going to stand outside these hotels and we'll get a camera crew down there, we'll ring up a couple of camera crews, we'll get them down there, and then as these people cycle out, you're just going to hike them off their bikes, you're going to arrest them, you're going to put them in the back of the van, confiscate the bikes, and that's it.
We had the Sun reporter in yesterday, Thomas Godfrey, who explained to us that amongst many of the places that they went to, and he had actually operated undercover himself, one of the hotels was in the Barbican, which is right in the centre of London, and they were so concerned about the people complaining about the bikes on the street outside, that they put a sort of a perimeter fence around the bikes. So you could, they're sitting there, you can walk past and see them, getting on the bikes, driving off, coming back. It's like a business. But the Home Office, which is only, less than a mile away, can't actually figure that out. Chris Philp, by the way, the Shadow Home Secretary, went and did his own investigation. He revealed yesterday that he'd also discovered some migrants working illegally. Have a look at this.
So we're at the hotel here. You can see there's a lot of Just Eat bikes here, a lot of Deliveroo bikes, loads of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, loads and loads of these bikes here. They look as if they're being used for delivery company work. Uber Eats, I've seen Uber Eats bike over there as well. Lots and lots of these bikes here. So let's try and find out a bit more about what's going on. So I've just spoken to the shopkeeper in the shop behind me. He confirmed the hotel is an asylum hotel, and people, he said, arrived on small boats are now staying there. And he also said he's seen lots of the residents of the hotel doing work on Uber Eats, on Deliveroo, and those kind of companies. So obviously working illegally.
So Chris Philp's been there. The Sun have been there. The government haven't been there.
No.
And Angela Eagle says, the Home Office Minister, she's going to meet with these companies next week. Why don't you just do what you say? Just get down there, pick up the bikes, put them in the back of a lorry, put the miscreants in the back of a Black Mariah, and cart them off to prison, right? It's not difficult. How about Alligator Island or whatever it's called, Alligator Alcatraz? Let's get one of those.
But they could stop this. They could stop this in a moment. I mean, you can have a wider conversation about the security, but then they've got to go away and they've got to develop something for the app. They've got to develop an improved notification system. And I think Thomas even managed to figure out exactly how they were working it. So you would apply for an account, and then when you realise that verification came up, you'd ring up your mate, and your mate who was a legitimate inverted commas, owner
of the account
would then say, okay, this is the code, and you'd stick it in.
Because I said to Thomas, how are these guys getting paid? Because they've only just come to this country, they don't have bank accounts. It all goes into a central fund, which also feeds into the likelihood that they're all working as part of a kind of a massive gang. Which of course Keir Starmer says he's smashing. But he's not really, is he? No. The only thing he's smashing is the records for the number of people coming in. Page 14 of the Mail today, this is a guy who, I don't know whether you'd ever heard of him before, but when they appointed a Borders Czar, right, that was a different guy. This is a new person who I've never heard of, and his name is David Bolt. Who is apparently the independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration. I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard of him before. He was apparently in front of the House of Lords committee yesterday. Basically what he said was, I'm not sure I feel very optimistic about the ability to smash the gangs.
No.
So he's not really reading from the same hymn book as Keir Starmer, who, of course, wants to smash the gangs. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer wants to do, shall we?
You will have helped to smash the gangs, take those gangs down. But smashing the gangs, no shortcut. To smash the criminal gangs, no gimmicks. Have to smash those gangs. Just the hard graft of sleeves rolled up, smash the gangs. Practical government. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. We will smash the gangs that undermine our security. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
Smash the gangs.
The people smuggling guns gangs. Now, according to Mr. Bolt, as I would call him, Bolt from the Blue, he told the House of Lords Committee yesterday, I did write to ministers to say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right way of thinking about things.
Yes,
so he told them that wasn't going to work.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, it did seem to me that the challenge was to change the risk-reward ratio for those people that are involved in organised immigration crime, and that is really quite a difficult thing to achieve because it's relatively low cost, relatively low risk for the perpetrators and highly profitable. And ultimately what they've got to do is they've got to create a system where if you arrive in this country on a small boat, having crossed and try and claim asylum, it is impossible for you to be able to claim asylum, and your claim is processed.
Well, we found out, did we not? I think at the weekend, I think it was Monday morning in the Times, 50,000 plus asylum seekers who have had their asylum claim turned down are still living in hotels because they're now appealing that, which will take at least 53 weeks to go through the system. So they're going to be sitting here for another year while their appeal goes through, paid for by the taxpayer, paid for us by on legal aid, and it shouldn't be happening. They should be kicked out of the country, they should be deported immediately, and if they wish to reapply or appeal, let them do it from abroad. They shouldn't be sitting here doing it.
But we're signed up, Mike, to the ECHR.
No, I mean, I don't think I'm going to get through without swearing this morning. You know, I'm going to go full Donald Trump on this. I'm going to go full Trump.
General is insisting that we will adhere to international law.
Yeah, well,
the European Convention on Human Rights.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the Donald. This is all I've got to say. I'm not saying it. He's saying it.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
You ever fought in Iraq?
Yeah, and that's about as good a summation of Britain and France as you can get. I think, you know, we've been going on about this for so long, they don't know what they're doing. Right?
It reminded me of watching that. Reminded me of we're in Wimbledon season, so it might be out. But you remember John McEnroe always used to have those temper tantrums.
Oh yeah.
And he was asked, you know, why people, you know, in the many of your listeners might remember he played against Bjorn Borg, who of course was this Swedish Iceman, who never had a reaction. And why do people love McEnroe? Because McEnroe had that human reaction,
exactly,
and they could relate to it. And I think many people can relate to what Donald Trump's saying. You know, we're dealing with this crisis in the Middle East, and it's just like that.
Exactly. It's exactly right. It's why, you know, for years and years and years when I used to do open night shows on talkSPORT, we just banned the whole subject of the Middle East because it became ridiculous. Because all you would get was the same two arguments from both sides going nowhere, absolutely going nowhere. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Great listening to Donald Trump there, his anger. I mean, you very, very rarely hear a politician swear like that. I think he's brilliant. He's obviously super cheesed off, and I think it's great to hear him, you know, be so passionate. And also, I hope you're right, because you normally are, Mike, on the government being brought down next week, or certainly in the imminent future. I can't wait to get this lot out.
Yeah, I think you and me both, Andy, and probably an awful lot of members of the public as well. We are going to come up about and talk about that coming up next. There, Usherwood's here. There is a vote next week on the benefits bill, which potentially is a massive, massive banana skin for Keir Starmer. And it could be that the whole business comes crumbling down around him. And it could mean that Rachel Reeves will be out of a job. It might even mean that the government has to go and think again. 0344 499 1000. That migrant track is still wrong, you know. I was going to keep arguing with people until they fix it. This is Talk.
That they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory 6:35. I'm Mike Graham. How on earth can they earn thousands per week? If they got £5 per delivery, they would have to do 200 deliveries per week. Something's not quite right. Even so, it's disgraceful. What are the personnel in charge of them doing? The country has gone down the pan, says this messenger about the idea of the Deliveroo people. Well, I mean, I suppose 200 deliveries a week is not out of the question, is it? If you break it down, 5 into that is what, 40 a day? I think they could easily do that. I mean, easily. They could do certainly 3 or 4 or 5 an hour. Yeah, and they're doing dare I say it, Mike? I've used these. I mean, I don't tend not to, just because I don't order a lot of food in. But I know people who do, and they always tell me that whenever the person turns up, it's never the person that was supposed to be the person that was said to be coming on the app. Yeah, and they also turn up with multiple. And they're increasingly doing it now. You look to see where your food is because you can track it, and increasingly you get a message saying they're delivering somebody else's food. Right. And when they've delivered that food, then they'll tell you where your food is. I mean, they're not going one and then back and then one and then back. They're picking up sort of 5 at a time, aren't they? Yeah, they take. And so you have these. You could easily do 5 an hour. Right, so if you do 5 an hour and you work for 10 hours, that's 50 a day. Yeah. You know, so you could easily, and they're working 6 days, 7 days a week. Yeah, often. And if it's £5 a go, that's 250 quid a day. Perfectly. So you could easily make £1,000 a week. Yeah, easily, and they'll often work much longer shifts. I mean, you can. When you order the food, when it's delivered to your door, like I said, they often turn up with 4 or 5 deliveries in there from the same restaurant. And these aren't. The other thing to say is these aren't like restaurants you and I think of. A lot of them are dark kitchens. Yeah. They just exist for these apps. Right. They're just they're under arches under. Yes, there's just a kitchen, arches, isn't it? And there's just a kitchen, some blokes cooking some food, right. And then they just churn it out for the. For these, it's a massive. Apps. I mean, I said this 3 years ago. It's a massive growth industry. It's one of the few growth industries in Britain because it's full of illegal migrants. Yeah, and it's really cheap. And if they're not, and if it's all being paid out of a central fund, then they're not paying tax. No, of course not. Absolutely right. Let's talk about this threat to Starmer's authority. Front page of the Daily Mail today. Keir Starmer is facing a humiliating threat to his authority over this benefits rebellion, which is continuing to grow. Labour MPs have brushed aside pressure from Downing Street and threats from party whips to demand that plans to trim £5 billion from the welfare budget are dumped before a crunch vote next Tuesday. So this is quite a serious problem. Yeah, it's really serious. Really, super serious for Rachel Reeves. They actually tried to get the rebellion down yesterday. Right. So Rachel Reeves going around speaking to Labour MPs, picking up the phone. Liz Kendall put in a huge amount of effort. And the mood is so rancorous within the Labour Party. The number of rebels increased. Right. They had the opposite. Effect of actually trying to get it down. As one Labour MP put it to me, it's not going to happen. Right. They're not going to get this legislation. Right. They're not going to get this legislation through the House of Commons. Yeah, the F word's obviously the thing of the day today, because there's a quote in the Mail today. One Labour insider said the whole thing is a massive FU to Keir and Rachel. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, they're sticking 2 fingers up to the government, aren't they? And that's their own party. And Keir Starmer, he's going to pay a price for not spending enough time in the tea rooms. He's going to pay a price for not being, trying to work his MPs, keeping them sweet. And maybe for not spending enough time in the country. Because he's away again. He was away last week in Canada. To no avail. I don't know what he was bothering to do at the G7 because nothing came of it. Right? Complete waste of time. All that happened was that he was shown up to be a complete and utter wally, out of touch, out of the loop. Told Beth Rigby from Sky that Donald Trump wasn't going to hit Iran. It turned out that he was, so he got that wrong. They didn't even come out with any kind of declaration after the G7 meeting, other than let's just de-escalate, which didn't happen. Now he's gone to NATO for what exactly? To tell them he's going to buy some planes from America. And he could have come to the House of Commons on. He should be here explaining what he's doing. He should have come to the House of Commons on Thursday to explain what he was doing. Yeah. He could have come to he could have been in the House of Commons on Monday, but he wasn't in the House of Commons on Monday. He left that to the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy. Yeah. And this is, if you don't put in as a Prime Minister or as a senior minister, if you don't put in the hard yards
in trying to keep your MPs on side. This is what happens.
Yeah.
This vote shouldn't be an issue. He's got a majority of 165 in the House of Commons.
Right.
He's less than a year into his tenure as Prime Minister. This should be a cakewalk for him as PM. This is a thorny issue. He's spent the money on. He's spent the money.
Right.
Spent taxpayer. He's spent the money on pay rises for the trade unions.
Yeah.
Particularly those trade unions that are close to, like the train drivers.
Yeah.
£10 billion of taxpayer.
By the way, the doctors this morning, the BMA doctors, are saying they're really excited about going out on strike again.
Yeah, he's prepared to. They're prepared to borrow the money for their projects to try and stimulate economic growth.
Yeah.
But when it comes to saving the money, then they're not able to do it. And the real issue that Rachel Reeves has got, and this is why I think it's going to be so crucial, is you're going to end up, if she can't get this through, we're going to end up in a situation like we ended up with Liz Truss, where the markets look at UK PLC and they think that the Chancellor doesn't have a grip on the public finances, and the cost of government debt soars through the roof. We saw that just after Christmas. They don't think the UK is worth investing in. We haven't, the government hasn't got a grip of the public finances, and we see the economy.
And this is a
tank.
£5 billion trim to the welfare budget, right?
It's not huge.
So no, but it's still £5 billion that the government needs to make
but
ends
they've
meet,
baked it in.
Yeah.
To get her fiscal headroom of 10 billion quid that she wanted to restore in the spring statement, this is what she's going to. This is what she said that she's going to do.
Yeah.
And now she appears
But they're now
she's not going
saying,
to be able to do it.
but how about this for a piece of chicanery? Downing Street said the Prime Minister is committed to pressing ahead with the vote next week, saying the reforms are essential to fix the broken welfare system. But officials are already drawing up contingency plans to delay the vote until the autumn if the rebellion holds firm. So if the rebellion looks like it's going to come, he might actually postpone the vote, which will mean they don't get the $5 billion, which will mean they'll have to put taxes up.
Yeah,
which will mean surely that Rachel Reeves is a busted flush, won't it? Whichever way that goes.
Yeah. That's fair. If they can't find this, well, they may have to put taxes up simply because the economy isn't growing and they haven't got the money coming in. And if we have a situation like we had in March,
trimming that they're supposed to be doing in the civil service, what's happened to that? Was that another promise that they're not going to fulfil? Surely that wasn't a lie, was it, Theo? Was it?
It hasn't come. It hasn't come to.
Was it a lie?
It hasn't quite come to fruition, and I'm not sure it is going to come to fruition.
It was a lie, wasn't it? Just say it. Go on.
I'm not. No, I just think it was said, and it hasn't quite. When we
it hasn't happened.
When
it's
we
not
looked,
happening.
When we looked at it, and Pat McFadden, the cabinet secretary, not cabinet secretary,
two
cabinet
houses,
office
Pat,
minister,
as we like to call him,
cabinet office minister, was asked about. When he was asked about it, they didn't want to go down the route of compulsory redundancies, and they're going to try and do it through natural wastage.
Right, so they're not doing it then, basically. So it was a lie. It's kind of a long-winded way of getting around to it. It's a lie, isn't it?
They haven't.
I'll let you think about it.
Right.
Listen, coming back, we're going to ask him about Cool Britannia. Do you remember that? Apparently it's coming back at 6:43.
stems from the fact that I think he's handled Donald Trump rather well. I'm not talking about Lammy. Lammy is a moron and a blight upon the government, and it is shameful that he is our foreign secretary, because this is a man with the IQ of a faulty indesit fridge freezer. You know, I mean, but Starmer has worked quite well with Trump.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:45. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Theo Usherwood is here with us. Margaret in Birmingham says, Mike and Theo, please keep playing Donald Trump saying what we're all thinking. What a great president. USA should be so proud of him. And Mick in Spain says, listening to Trump effing and blinding is like what the British people are saying about Starmer and the Labour government. Absolutely right. I mean, people are sick to death. I mean, we had this conversation yesterday, Julia and I, about people have just had enough. They've got to the point now where everything that's happening around them, everything they see, whether it's illegal migrants working, whether it's illegal migrants getting access to NHS healthcare, whether it's illegal migrants coming in on the dinghies, whether it's, you know, trains that don't work, whether it's, you know, a government that doesn't work. People are just sick to death of all of it. And they just want to go, you know, F this, you know, for a bunch of soldiers, as they say.
And I think, you know, Trump's got, if you listen to those who've known him for years, if you know, you think back to his time as, you know, working on The Apprentice, his time you know, as a, he's got that real world, he's always had that real world touch.
He's got, same as Nigel Farage, you know, people complain about Nigel Farage on the left saying, oh, you think he's a hero of the working class? No, he went to private school and he's a posh boy and he worked in the city. Doesn't matter. He's got the common touch. Yeah. People like him, they relate to him, they understand how he speaks. I mean, yesterday or the day before, he was the only political leader who actually said he was in favour of what Donald Trump had done in Iran. You know, Labour were busy trying to kind of not say that they were backing it. And, you know, mealy-mouthed, and, you know, it was just ridiculous.
And people always appreciate, you know, you can always tell if somebody is not giving you a straight answer. And it's really irritating.
Well, like you just didn't.
Yeah.
You know,
was that really?
You know, sorry about that, but you know, I'm not trying to pick on you. But you know, you're very good at that because you work in that political sphere where you don't necessarily want to say something, and that's why these people are not trusted. They just are not trusted by ordinary people because people don't talk like that in the pub. You know, it's like you come home and your wife goes, "Where have you been?" Well, you know, the thing is, I've always said, I've been very clear about, you know, what it is that we're supposed to be doing today, and you just keep obfuscating and going around. And eventually she goes, look, where were you? Who were you with? And why have you got lipstick on your collar? You know, what were you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
And that's something that, you know, I think many people look at the ins and outs of what's happening in the Middle East, right? And they'll be like, just sort it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Just sort it out.
Just get on with it. Yeah. Let's get a voice note from Jamie on delivery drivers.
What I don't understand with this Labour government is they absolutely hate small and medium-sized businesses, jack taxes up, national insurance contributions, etc., etc. All they seem to do is smash the little man. They don't smash these gangs. Why don't they just withdraw Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eats licences? Stop them operating. If you stop them operating, you stop the problem straight away. I don't understand why they're not going for that side of the problem. Why are they not stopping these people having the opportunity to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's relatively easy to do, isn't it? But, I mean, you know, Angela Eagle meeting these people next week isn't going to help matters because, you know, between now and next week, there's another 5 or 6 days where they're all wandering around making loads of money.
And you've got to get real. And I think this is not just a problem for Labour government, but I also think about Harry Cole's interview just before he went over to the States with Simon Case, who's obviously the most important civil servant in the country when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, who made the point that that his former colleagues in the civil service needed to do something. This was a sort of last chance salute. If they didn't do something, then there's a hard rain coming. And I thought it was, you know, what this response from Angela Eagle points to, and the Home Office response points to, is they simply don't quite realise what's coming if they don't sort it out.
Right.
They've got to. They can't allow this stuff to fester because
but they've got so much stuff.
Whether it's Jamie calling in, that's a widely held view out there in the country.
Yeah.
That people are just fed up to the back teeth, and they want you, the system, just to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that we'll have a meeting with the companies in a week's time or 6 days' time, whatever. Just gives you the impression they don't really care.
They don't really care. There's no urgency. No, because but it also tells you that they've never run anything. Because if you're running a company, like you said, you'd be straight down there and say, look, we've got to put a stop to this. We've got to stop it today. Not next week, not next month, not when the company says that they're going to stop it, but right now, today. That guy on a bike, take him off the bike, put him in the back of a van, and take the bike off and crush it. And that's the end, right? So he won't be making any more deliveries. And then you take the next guy, same thing. The next guy, same thing. And pretty soon you've got 100 of them, and they're not making any more deliveries, and they're getting deported.
And you can
just kick them out.
And you can bet your bottom dollar that today there will be a police operation where they are just pulling people over, law-abiding motorists over, whether it's in London or up and down the street. Like, have you got your paperwork together?
Exactly.
Or have you?
Exactly. Why don't they just stop these guys? I mean, you can literally walk out onto the street there next to this building in London Bridge, Tooley Street, and you could lift one of these guys literally every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Every 30 seconds, and you can guarantee that they're all illegal.
And if they have the right to work, then they'll have the paperwork.
Yeah.
If they don't have the right to work, then, as you say, crush their bike, take the
Crush the bike, send them straight to Alligator Alcatraz. You were saying that actually it's a
cost-saving measure.
It's a cost-saving measure because they don't need fences.
Yeah, so it's on a former training airport in the middle of the Everglades, and I think it's going to cost around $450 million. Not very much money because they don't need to build, fences or searchlights or employ loads of guards because if you want to escape, go for it. You're not going to last very long because as well as the alligators, there are pythons as well.
Brilliant. Well, what I've always said, there's plenty of uninhabited islands up in the north of Scotland, off the, off Uist and, the Outer Hebrides and all that. You just put them on an island, and fend for themselves. You don't even have to build anything. You can give them a tent if you want.
Labour
and they can actually have, shelter from the weather. But basically, they can't go anywhere because you can't swim to safety because it's really, really dangerous. And, that's where you live.
A Labour MP called Josh Simons suggested that before the general election.
I suggested it when I worked in Scotland in 2009.
There were howls of outrage.
Yeah, of course there were.
Howls of outrage.
Yeah, but back then there were always howls of outrage. Now, there are no longer howls of outrage. But I think we've got David Bolt, the new head of the border patrol. He's not the border commander. Nobody knows who this guy is, and we'll try and find out. His name's David Bolt. Here he is talking to the House of Lords Committee.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things. The challenge was to change the sort of risk-reward ratio for those people that are involved in organised immigration crime, and that was really quite a difficult thing to achieve because it's relatively low cost, relatively low risk for those the perpetrators, and highly profitable. So I'm not sure I feel very optimistic about the ability to smash the gangs.
Yeah, I mean, nobody does. It's only Keir Starmer that thinks smashing the smuggling gangs is a good thing. This guy, independent chief inspector of boards and immigration. Yeah. So does he work for the Home Office? Who does he work for?
So yeah, it's a civil servant position.
Right.
And he goes in.
But how have we never heard of this guy before? I mean, we've had a problem with the borders and immigration for the best part of the last 10 years. How has he never ever sort of, shown his face till now?
So he worked previously. I don't know the answer to that question, but he did work previously. For the serious and organised crime.
Okay, so he's a proper guy then.
So he's a proper, he knows he should know what he's doing. I'm sure he does know what he's doing. There's no reason to believe that he doesn't. Which of course came before the National Crime Agency. So he comes in with his specialism. It's like you have a chief inspector of prisons, or somebody who inspects the police force or how they're run. So he just does that for the UK borders and immigration. Yeah. And if he's saying it's not going to work.
Well, he's written to ministers. He's written to ministers saying it won't work, and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Although they don't say it as much as they used to. It has to be said.
But if they don't deal with this, it's not just we don't just simply move on, Mike.
Right.
We don't. If we end up with 50 or 60,000 people crossing the English Channel here. And we end up with more front pages like those on the Sun for the last couple of days. This doesn't this doesn't just go away.
No.
It's a sort of like...
But this is the thing, you know, with this Labour government, they make an announcement, nothing happens, and then they move on as if they never said it. And this is the trouble. You know, people are sick to death of these promises being made and nothing happening. Let's have a look at the head of Border Security Command. This is the new guy from who was appointed last year to fix it all, Martin Hewitt. Here's what he had to say.
As the new Border Security Commander, my mission is to deliver a step change in all of the work that we are doing to disrupt and dismantle the criminal gangs that are not only trying to breach our borders but are also risking people's lives. By creating the command, so my message to those groups is that we will be attacking your business in every way that we can across all the routes into the UK.
Yeah, attacking them, right.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to have made much difference, does it? That was in September of last year, so more than 6 months ago, and the number of people coming has gone up.
Yeah.
So whatever the attacking formation is that they're using, it's time to have a rethink.
Hasn't worked, and we knew it wasn't going to work.
It's a bit like you're going out for the second half, you're 6-0 down. You know, what does Gareth Southgate do? He just strokes his chin and goes, well, we're going to smash the gangs. And, you know, they haven't got a clue, have they? They don't know what they're doing. Let's have it. Let's get Donald Trump up. Come on, let's have it. The short version. The short one. You know, never mind the long one.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
It's true. We're going to play this all day. It's great.
The problem is they don't want to do... The solution is there, but it involves something unpalatable that they don't want to do, and that is scrapping our, no longer signing up to the European Convention on Human Rights. That's the way you deal with it, because then once you've done that, you can simply say, right, we're going to create a detention centre on an island in the South Atlantic. If you arrive in this country, buy a small boat, you go straight on. We don't even have to assess your claim. No. You go straight on a plane and you go to that.
They do what Australia did, which is if you arrive on these shores illegally without permission, you have committed a crime and you're going to be locked up. But that's where you start. Surely. Surely. We can't even. I mean, the prison population's overflowing. The only way to do it. No, we put them in a detention centre. Just build one. You know. Alligator Island, whatever you like, just build one, put them on a cruise ship. You know, there's any number of things you can do. Let's move on though. Doctors' leaders sparked fury yesterday after admitting they are excited by the prospect of further strikes, despite the risks to NHS patients. This is from the British Medical Association, that ghastly Marxist organisation which pretends not to be a union but actually is. The quote from Dr. Ross Revolt, co-chairman of the BMA's Resident Doctors Committee. Everyone I talk to has already returned their ballot. In general, what we're hearing overall, the vast majority, is that people are excited to go again, i.e. to go on strike. So, i.e. to do not what they said they would do, and not to keep their faith with the Hippocratic Oath, which is first, do no harm. What a collection of swine they are.
They got a pay rise of 22% last year, of course.
They did, and because of that, they decided to change their name from junior doctors to resident doctors. I'm going to keep calling them junior doctors because apparently it annoys them. They say they're still underpaid despite the 22% pay rise. Now they want 50%. What's wrong with these people? Hey?
So they're not going to get the money, and they're going to go on strike, and it feels like that. And I hate to say it, but it feels like the Boris Johnson approach was you're not getting any money to start off with and go on strike. If there was to be a justification for doing that, this is it.
Yeah.
Right? Why did, if we're in the public finances are in such dire straits anyway, if they're going to go on strike anyway, why didn't Wes Streeting just turn around and say, forget it.
Yeah.
You're not getting any.
You're not getting any money. Well, because the Labour government fell for what they always fall for, which is they thought if we give them money, they'll go away. But instead of which, they came back for more.
Yeah.
Quick one for you. Britpop apparently has come back, and return of Cool Britannia, according to the Sun this morning. Hair and familiar fashion. Do you remember it first time around?
Yes, I do. I was in my teens.
Yeah.
Liz Hurley in that dress. In that dress,
yeah.
We had. The rivalry between the
Blur and Oasis. We had the Gallagher brothers at Downing Street. Remember that?
Kate Moss was at Downing Street as well.
Yes, she was.
And it felt like a sort of a moment.
It was a real cultural shift, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was great fun, actually.
but it's not. It doesn't feel like.
I'm not sure it's back.
It's back,
but we'll see.
Starmer has managed to recapture
we may take a view on that one. Coming back, of course, we're talking about the mid to late 90s, which many people remember. It was a great time actually to be in London. A lot better in London than it is now. But anyway, that's another story. We'll be hearing more from Donald Trump. I don't know what the F they're doing. I mean, that's very, very good summation of what's going on in this country and elsewhere. Coming up, Tobias Elwood's going to be here. Helen Whately as well. Also, we're going to be finding out what on earth is happening in the Channel. This is Talk. We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah, rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dived
across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 7, and we are here, of course, for the duration. It is Wednesday, the 25th of June. We've been hearing an awful lot, of course, at the beginning of this week about the troubles in the Middle East. There's a truce now which is still holding. Donald Trump wasn't very happy yesterday when it appeared that Iran had broken the truce and then Israel was going to retaliate, but it all seems to have settled down again. Nothing much to report overnight. The front pages this morning are all filled with stories of us buying more military hardware because we were told, were we not, by Keir Starmer just a couple of weeks ago that we were on a war footing and that we were going to have to bump up the amount of money we spend on defence. He's talking about now spending 5% of GDP in 2035, which is 10 years away, when he won't be around. Vladimir Putin may not be around. Certainly the Ayatollah Khomeini won't be around, and probably Benjamin Netanyahu won't even be around. Donald Trump probably won't be around then either. He also said that what we're going to do is we're going to create thousands and thousands of jobs by investing in our defence industry. We're going to build missiles, we're going to build submarines, we're going to get more planes, we're going to get more trains, we're going to get more tanks, we're going to get more automobiles. Turns out British jets are going to be being bought in from America. A major NATO summit in The Hague is going on today. He says that we're going to purchase 12 F-35A fighter planes. Unlike the RAF's current fleet of F-35B jets, they can carry nuclear weapons. But We're going to be giving that money to America. The nuclear weapons are going to be coming from America. And to all intents and purposes, we are not going to grow our own economy, which is what Keir Starmer said we were going to do, by spending our own money. There's only one person to ask about all of this. Donald Trump, what do you think of Keir Starmer?
They don't know what the they're doing. You understand that?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I mean, it's the only way you can sum up this government, I'm afraid. Meanwhile, smashing the gangs, we're now being told by a man that runs the borders in this country that basically he wrote to ministers weeks and weeks and weeks and months and months and months ago to tell them that smashing the gangs was not a very good idea. And he says he's not very optimistic about it. He says it won't work. He says it won't happen. Meanwhile, we've got loads and loads of these illegal migrants driving around the cities of this country, delivering food to people illegally. Apparently the Home Office is going to crack down on it, but not until next week.
They don't know what the they're doing. You understand that?
Listen, if you're waiting at home for a sausage and egg McMuffin to come to you, it will be brought to you by somebody who's here illegally, not paying any tax, and doing a very nice business, thank you very much indeed, pretending to be somebody else. Don't worry, though. Our borders are secure, aren't they? That's what Keir Starmer keeps telling us. Meanwhile, the doctors are looking forward to going on strike again because apparently they don't make enough money. We're going to be talking about what else is going on. The poorest towns in this country are going to get more cash from the NHS. And, of course, we're going to find out why Lucy Connolly has been mistreated in jail. Richard Tice was here yesterday. He went to see her and has reported back that she has been manhandled, she's been pushed around, she's been locked up in places where she shouldn't have been. We'll find out what that's all about as well. 5 minutes past 7. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Michelle says this, Mike, it's beyond obvious that illegal immigration is at the root cause of most of our problems, yet it's the one that is constantly ignored by the government. They need to answer to why they won't stop these boats, as it's becoming really suspicious now. Our people are at risk. I think that's very, very obvious. And one here from Mark in Selby, talking about Kemi Badenoch. Has she taken leave of her senses? She is willing to help Keir Starmer out with votes to get his benefits bill through if he agrees to 3 conditions. She has called him out numerous times for breaking his promises and yet seemingly now trusts him completely. And as for Keith, he should take a leave of absence due to red carpet fever, meaning he loves being treated as a celebrity while failing to make any decisions for the good of British citizens. He leaves any important decisions up to unelected far-left morons. Happy Wednesday. Yeah, well, he's facing a massive rebellion in the House of Commons, Keir Starmer, and things are not going well. In fact, I don't think things could be going any worse for this government. Let's talk to Tobias Elwood, former chair of the Defence Select Committee. Tobias, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Good to speak to you. We were told that our defence industry was going to sort of be the beginning of a great sort of new system of growth in this country, that we were going to suddenly unleash the power of the exchequer onto our defence contractors. We were going to build submarines, we were going to build ships, we were going to build planes and all of that. It now looks as though we're going to buy some planes in from America. So it's not really the growth that we were promised, is it?
Well, that's just one part of it, but what you imply is important to take as in the round. The world's getting more dangerous, not less, and we need to upgrade our defence posture. I'm just back from The Hague, from the NATO summit, where there was this collective agreement being put forward to shift defence spending to 5% GDP, and that's good news. But my concern is that target is for 2035.
Yeah, right.
A full decade from now, and the world will look very different by then. It's a step in the right direction, but it's all too slow given the threats that are coming over the hill.
Well,
we've just had a Russian warship sneak into British waters, protecting its shadow fleet. And we are subject daily to cyber attacks from Russia and other countries too. So we need to be upgrading all our domains of warfare much, much faster. We still have no real answer to contain Russia's aggression, as our half-hearted support in Ukraine actually demonstrates. You mentioned those F-35As. That's welcome, actually, because if you want to advance your own nuclear deterrent, we have no tactical nuclear weapons. You require that aircraft and the B-61s unless you're going to procure your own program. But the F-35Bs, which is the ones that land on our aircraft carrier, we were supposed to buy 138 of those, and I think we don't even have 40. So there's an awful lot of work to invest. But my concern is that it's all coming very late. I predict that given the deteriorating threat picture, a small atomic bomb will be dropped in the next 5 years. And that will move us into a far more dangerous world. Do we have to wait to then really invest in our defence and make sure that we're safe?
Well, people will say, Tobias, well, hang on a minute, you guys were in charge for 14 years of the last 15, so why didn't the Tories invest in defence?
I did make my mark, as you know. I was chair of the Defence Committee, as Defence Minister as well. I said we need to move at least to 3% back in 2019. Unfortunately, the pressures that you've just been talking about, those other areas of domestic policy, I'm afraid members of Parliament, they want to see hospitals invested in, schools and so forth, the migration being tackled, all these other things. Defence gets pushed to the back of the queue until the threats suddenly are right in front of you. But by that time, it's too late.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Because most people today, Tobias, will say to me, the biggest threat that we face probably in their mind is not necessarily the threat from Russia, not necessarily even the threat from Iran in the Middle East, but the threat from terrorism in this country, inside of our own borders. That is a very, very real threat that we've suffered from and that people can see and that they can feel and they can touch and they can fear, if you like, because they see that as a much more likely thing that might affect them. It's all, and nobody's denying what you say could happen. But surely people are more worried about going to a football match or going to Wimbledon or going to a concert, which is going to get blown up by some suicide bomber.
It's actually all interlinked, and perhaps we don't spend enough time thinking about this. Where are many of the migrants that come here? They're coming here, they're fleeing countries that we've wandered into, whether it be Libya, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, even Iran now as well. We've bombed the hell out of Iran, but there's no follow-up plan.
Well, yeah,
to
but,
take
haven't
Iran
we
into a
haven't
better
bombed.
place.
Hang on, Tobias, hang on. We haven't bombed the hell out of Iran at all. As the government will tell you, nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything to do with the bombing of
what
Iran.
What I'm saying is from a Western perspective, then that's what's happened.
Yeah, but they're not fleeing. They're not fleeing Iran because we bombed it. Is my point.
Okay, we can. I think that's semantics.
No, it's not semantics. They're not. No, it's a fact. We did not bomb Iran. They're not fleeing Iran because we bombed it. They might be fleeing Iran because it's a horrible place.
Okay, I think you're missing my point. What I'm trying to say, though, is that the West, whether it be America on its own or indeed collectively, has gone into various parts of the Middle East where we've not followed through with any form of post-conflict
No, I get that. I understand
support.
that.
And the consequence of that is that then security and governance then collapses, extremism then takes over. That's when you get the extremists being cultivated and indoctrinated.
But with respect, Tobias, that's not what's happened in Iran. It's not what's happened in Eritrea, which is a place where people are coming from by the thousands as well. And it's not what's happened in Sudan. We have not abandoned those countries. We have not gone into those countries. We have got a massive problem with immigration, illegal immigration in this country, because we are a soft touch, and everybody knows if they get here, they will have a reasonable life and they'll be able to drive around in a Deliveroo electric bicycle, making £1,000 a week. That's why they're coming.
Yes, I'm trying to say that they also depart these countries. They turn their backs on their own countries because their own countries have fallen into complete disarray. And Sudan, I'm afraid, is another live example where the situation continues to deteriorate and there'll be mass migration from that country. Where will they head?
Yeah.
They will head,
they'll head here
into Europe and then absolutely to Britain.
But what I'm saying is that's not necessarily our fault. We can't look after every single country in the world. I agree with you that we damaged Libya, we damaged Iraq, Syria was a problem as well. But you can't blame the British for everything. A lot of reasons.
I'm not blaming the British. You're missing my point. But the British have in the past have that collective soft power capability of, with other countries, making sure that we continue to invest after the bombs stop falling. Iraq and Afghanistan are great examples where we defeated a regime and then didn't invest in wise solutions to follow up, and eventually handing them back over to those that then wish us harm. That then causes the instability that leads to mass migration. So it's much more nuanced than simply looking at the migration problems from the British end.
No, I get that. But the point is that the reason that many of these people come to Western Europe is because they can have a better life. Most of them are economic migrants. They're not fleeing war, because if they were fleeing war, they would be bringing their families with them, which they're not doing.
Right.
They get here and then they bring their families. They leave their families behind, who are not in danger as such, but they're just not having a very nice life. And, nobody can disavow that. But let's get back to what I was saying. They're not all terrorists either, but some of them are, and some of them may well be terrorists coming from Iran. Some of them may well wish to do us harm as a result of what the West has done to Iran. And that is the immediate, for me anyway, the immediate fear that a lot of people in this country have.
So this is the concern I have about Iran now. I mean, we've had a roller coaster of events over the last couple of weeks, and now people are celebrating, saying, oh, look, it's all over, claiming the threat from Iran has gone. It can no longer build a nuclear weapon. Its proxy influence is crushed. I really do urge a sense of caution. This is a theocratic regime. It remains in power. The follow-up assessments, the leak report suggests the damage was less than initially thought. The components of Iran's nuclear program still remain. I personally believe that 400 kilograms of enriched uranium was long squirreled away, along with many of the centrifuges. Some scientists have been killed, but the knowledge amongst the team of hundreds remains there. The threat is real, and yet we're not doing anything.
So,
Where
what are you saying? Are you saying we should bomb them some more? Then, are you saying we should completely change the regime?
No, quite the opposite. There needs to be a diplomatic and geopolitical follow-up to say that Iran is now weakened. We do have the upper hand, but what are we going to do about it to nudge Iran, encourage Iran to move into a more positive direction?
But why would they?
Which means that there's more stability in there.
Yeah, but why would they? Yeah, but come on, Tobias, why would they? Why would they bother to move to a more stable situation when they've got to where they are now by being a ghastly, horrible, theocratic regime, as you put it, with their own nuclear devices? Why would they change that? Just because somebody asked them to?
Because the regime itself in the country has never been so unpopular. There is a population there of 92 million people that absolutely are calling for change. So how can we actually nudge that and affect that and make that come forward? How can we lead Iran into a better place? You're right. These are very, very difficult questions. All I'm saying, and there's examples in history where what we've simply done is then walk away after we then bomb the bad people, hoping things will then move into a better place. And they don't do that. We need to remain invested in what's going on in Iran. For 3 decades, we've watched Iran develop and cultivate a proxy poisonous influence across the Middle East, and we did little about it.
Yeah.
In Libya and in Lebanon, for example, for years I visited that country, and I was always puzzled why more wasn't done to challenge Hezbollah that are based there, supported by Iran.
And now the Israelis have pretty much neutered Hezbollah, and they did it by means of attacking them and by blowing them up, because sometimes that's the only thing you can do. And now Lebanon is a much more safe place for people who live there and who don't want Hezbollah to come back. So that's a good thing. But it wouldn't have been happening if it wasn't for Israel. You know, it was only because of their actions that it happened.
But you sort of make my point for me. Israel did all that in the 1980s when Hezbollah was formed. They were formed because of a previous invasion in Lebanon by Israel. And Israel did well, as you say, again, to then limit and curtail Hezbollah's military capability. But then there's no follow-up. There's no political follow-up to take Lebanon into a better place. Where's the support to nurture the governance structures that the Lebanese themselves want? Instead, we stand back, we walk away, we go home. And then the vacuum is filled by extremism that's actually paid for by Iran, which is supported now by Russia and China.
Which is why surely you have to take
challenges that we need to address.
Which is why you have to take Iran out of the picture, surely. But listen, Tobias, we've got to run. Thank you very much indeed. Tobias Elwood, former chair of the Defence Select Committee. I think we agreed on a couple of things there, but not very much. I think the only answer with Iran is to blow them up, isn't it? As Donald Trump did. Maybe better next time. Brian, on the migrants.
Morning, Mike. It's Brian from Coventry. Why not turn these hotels that the illegals are staying in into prisons and not let them leave? Just an idea.
It's like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. Not a bad idea. Morning, Mike, says G in Birmingham. The cost of our economy these illegals have is staggering. You can see why they all jump on boats when Handout Britain will offer you the keys to the kingdom on arrival. Imagine any other country allowing illegals to arrive, then roam free around the country. What a state we're in, thanks to decades of Labour and the Tories. It's time for change. Well, that's why so many people have decided that the uni party of the Tories and the Labour governments of the last 14 to 15 years have simply had their time. And it's now time to give somebody else a chance. And that's why Reform are leading so much in the polls. And that's why Reform, every poll you see, are going up and up and up and up. Coming up, we're going to speak to Helen Whately, who's Shadow Department for Work and Pension Secretary. She's live on College Green down in Westminster. We'll be back after this.
the fact of the matter is that the ability and the ease with which individuals crossing the channel can then go in and work for places such as this, or car washes and other sort of improper businesses, is a huge pull factor, and it's a huge reason why we see the numbers continue to go up. I think the way we've handled this situation since 2018, by scattering these individuals around the country in hotels with no real checks to make sure that they're not doing anything improper, is a huge reason why we have this problem. And instead, what we should be doing is, if an individual is coming across the channel, breaking into our country illegally,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:21. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. We are the home of common sense. We've been talking about a great many things this morning, including the fact that Keir Starmer told us he was going to use defence and the building up of our defences to create growth in this country, to create jobs, to create money, to create all sorts of, riches, because we would need tanks, we would need planes, we would need automobiles, we would need submarines, and we would be using all of our money and all of our investment to put into our own factories here, our munitions factories, and build up thousands and thousands of jobs and billions of pounds worth of business. But unfortunately, it now turns out that we're buying a load of this stuff in from the United States of America. To wit, this morning, British fighter jets are going to carry nuclear warheads for the first time. We're going to buy 12 F-35A fighter planes, which are unlike the RAF's current fleet of F-35B jets, because they can carry nuclear weapons, right? There's no absolute timeline on this, but it is all part of the drive to try and spend 5% of our GDP by 2035. They'll be based at RAF Mara, which is good news because obviously Brize Norton is not a very secure place to keep them. They're going to operate from land-based airstrips because they lack the technology to use the Royal Navy's aircraft carriers. Hang on a minute. So we're buying new planes, but they don't work on aircraft carriers.
They don't know what the they're doing.
What
Do you
is that?
understand that?
What is that all about? Let's talk to Helen Whately, MP, Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. Helen, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, we've got Keir Starmer sort of on the ropes here because he keeps talking about building up our defences and spending 5% of GDP on defence by 2035, which seems a very long way off. Why are we buying jets from America when we could be building our own?
Well, I mean, one thing actually that is important, and I do support Keir Starmer on, is a commitment to invest in our country's defence. We live in a dangerous world, and increasingly dangerous, and we do need to be making sure that we have the equipment we need to defend ourselves. But there's a problem here for Keir Starmer, which is he hasn't identified where the money is coming from. I expect we're going to talk about this in a moment, but next week there's due to be a crucial vote on the government's welfare savings, and it doesn't look like he's necessarily going to be able to get that through with the support of his MPs.
No, that's true. Let's have a look at what he said yesterday about how it is not apparently a confidence vote.
Well, we need to drive through reform in the welfare system. It's not working for anyone. It's not a confidence vote. It's a vote.
Not.
It's a vote
You
about
don't see
reform.
it like that.
It's about a vote about reform of our welfare system. It isn't working. It doesn't help people into work. Quite the contrary.
I mean, I agree with him that welfare needs to be reformed, but if he can't get it past his own MPs, then surely it is a confidence vote, isn't it?
Well, exactly, he's got a problem if he can't get it past his MPs. No, part of the problem here is that they're doing this in a complete rush. They didn't make a plan before they came into government, and Rachel Reeves has made terrible decisions for the economy that's got her into a really difficult financial position. So they haven't won over their MPs on this legislation. I mean, the situation is the welfare system isn't working. Over 2,000 people a day are going on to sickness benefits. We're spending more than the defence budget on welfare. Not enough people are going into work, but the legislation that Labour are proposing to vote on next week actually doesn't fix that. That's why Kemi Badenoch, as leader of the opposition, has made a constructive offer to Keir Starmer, which is that if he makes three commitments. The first is to bring the welfare bill down properly. The second is to get more people into work. The third is then to use those welfare savings so he doesn't have to put up taxes in the autumn budget. If he commits to that and to fixing this welfare plan, then he will have our constructive support so that he can make welfare savings.
The rise in the numbers of people on welfare has absolutely rocketed in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, though, hasn't it? And it may not be the fault of the Tory government previously, but the Tory government was in charge of the welfare state at that time. Do you think you did enough to stop that welfare budget from ballooning? Because it obviously did.
So between 2010 and the pandemic, we brought down the welfare bill. We got many more people into work and unemployment came right down as well. Something we'd seen as we came through the pandemic is, as you say, an increase in people going on to sickness benefits, and particularly more younger people claiming for things like common mental health disorders like anxiety and neurodiversity. And actually one of the problems with the government's welfare bill that we're debating next week is that it doesn't address this at all. In fact, it will take benefits more likely away from older people with things like arthritis than tackling that problem of the growing number of younger people who actually would be much better off in work.
So what would you do then if you were actually still in government to stop these people from claiming welfare benefits? What would you do?
Yeah, there's several things we would do. I mean, first and foremost, we would be more ambitious on the amount that the welfare bill needs to come down. It needs to come down by much more than what Labour is proposing, which is only around 5 billion savings, and the bill is forecast to go up to nearly 100 billion by the end of this decade. So we would be much more committed about getting that bill down and much more determined about getting people into work. Unemployment is going up under this government. That tends to happen under Labour, unfortunately. We would be taking that in the other direction. And specifically to reduce the number of people on sickness benefits, we'd be tackling this assessment process, which just isn't working, and lots of people in fact one of the forecasts with this legislation that the government's doing, trying to get through next week, is that most people will just change the way they apply for their benefits and still be able to be on them. So we need to fix that assessment process, have much more assessments face to face rather than down the phone, and as I said, get into this problem where we are seeing more people with relatively common mental health problems like anxiety claiming on benefits and not being supported into work. That's really important to fix.
Yeah, but how would you actually get them to stop claiming benefits and get them into work? If somebody came to you and said, I'm suffering from anxiety, I can't work, I need my welfare benefits, how would you get them physically, that person, how would you get them back to work?
Look, it's not something that I can set out in a short interview on this kind of program.
I can give you as long as you like.
And the reality with welfare is that people's situations are complex, and for instance, people who are coming forward asking for support with things like anxiety, it's very often a genuine thing. However, the whole system needs to work differently, including one area where we were specifically working on reforms and had them in train was on the sick note that people get from their GP, which you need a much better process where you don't just have a GP saying, yes, if you think you need time off work, yes, there you go, but actually proper conversation about what work that person could be doing and what support they need to do it.
Yeah, but that's all fine and dandy, but it's not very specific. And I mean, I appreciate you can't go into massive detail, but surely you'd have to have a principle, would you not? That people, for example, like in America, you'd only be allowed to be on unemployment benefit for a certain period of time, maybe. You then would have to prove that you literally couldn't work. Otherwise, you don't get any more benefit. I mean, that's the only way to get people off benefits, isn't it?
Well, in the coming days and weeks, we will be setting out more of our specific plans in these kind of areas. One of the things that we're committed on is we want to do the hard work of coming up with the properly thought through policies during our time in opposition. One of the problems that Keir Starmer is facing and why he's got so much chaos and can't get his MPs to support welfare savings is because he didn't do this hard work in opposition. He didn't really think through and come up with a plan with how they were going to make savings. It's hard work. They didn't do it. We will.
There's some suggestion that if he thinks there's not going to be enough votes in it for him to get the bill passed, that they might pull the bill altogether and postpone it till the autumn. That would be pretty despicable, wouldn't it?
Well, if they have to pull a bill, that would be an extraordinary position to be in. We've already had the winter fuel U-turn, and they really need to start making savings to the welfare budget. As I said, it needs to be brought under control, and we don't want to see tax rises in the autumn. And we recognise the importance of it. That's one reason why we've said to him, although we know it's bad legislation, we've shown him the way that he should fix it. Said if he makes this commitment to the three things, to bringing the welfare bill down properly, to getting more people into work, and to not making tax rises in the autumn, then he can have the opposition's support for this, for welfare savings, and then he wouldn't need to pull the bill and be able to get on with it.
OK. Helen, thanks very much indeed. Helen Whately, the MP and Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, talking about what the Tories would do. They say they've got a plan, but they don't really want to get into exactly what it would be, because the way that people now claim benefit means that it's almost impossible to get them off it. And the Tories don't seem to have a clue as to how to get them off it. And I think we need some better ideas about how to get them off it, quite frankly. And what always happens whenever they do a reform of the welfare system is that the wrong people end up getting attacked, and the right people who should be getting attacked always get away with it because they know all the tricks of the trade. Lee says this: hello Mike, we have a takeaway in my town that was previously closed down for being a drugs den. It's never open, it's a bit like the bag push shop, but there are dozens of food delivery bikers sat outside every single day. What exactly are they delivering? Well, that's another good question, because there's clearly a bit of a crossover, shall we say, to be generous, between the people who are on the front page of The Sun delivering food to people's houses and drug dealing, because there's clearly a crossover between the people who deliver drugs to people's homes and who deliver food to people's homes. Brian from Spain says, Mike, if Canada doesn't want to be the 51st state of America, can we apply? We need someone with a backbone. Thanks for putting a smile on our faces. Well, I do my best. Let's get a note from Bob.
Mike, I recently did a CBT course that enabled me to ride a 125 motorcycle, and the other chap on the course with me openly confessed that he was an illegal immigrant who had been riding a motorcycle for a pizza delivery company for 3 years without even a car licence. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Great show, as per.
Bob, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I mean, supposedly these people come to this country, right? They land on the beaches at Dover. They get taken in by RNLI. They get looked over. They get a life jacket given to them by the French. They get that taken off them. They normally don't have a phone. They've normally got no papers at all. Within hours, they're cycling around on an electric bike and delivering food. Presumably, I don't know what the rules are, maybe somebody can tell me, if you've got an electric bike, you don't need any kind of licence because it's technically not a moped, is it? If you've got a moped, I think you need at least a provisional licence, even if you don't have a proper driving licence. But I imagine, because these people are undocumented and illegal to begin with, they don't need any kind of paperwork in order just to get on the back of a bike and drive it around. That's the problem. You know, illegality is everything. What is going on? B in Bristol says, we can't keep being a bleeding cash cow for the world. These bloody politicians in the Uni Party all want to throw every bit of help to everyone, except the people that bleeding well pay for it. They are a disgrace. Get them out. I think you're referring to Tobias Elwood, who wants us to help all these countries around the world, like Sudan, like Eritrea, you know, like Afghanistan. Well, we've already done all that. We've tried all that. These are people who are coming here because they want the idea of living a better life. They want the idea of freebies and the ability to make money driving around for Deliveroo. No wonder they keep coming. The bottom line is that surely what we should be worrying about is not buying planes that we're going to be flying around in about 10 years' time, by which time, you know, the world may have come to an end anyway if somebody's going to drop a nuclear bomb on somebody else. The point is we need defences in this country. We need to be sure that we're not going to get blown up by a suicide bomber, that somebody's not going to drive a car into a crowd of people at a market. We need to not be having to put bollards up everywhere. We need to stop people coming in who want to do us harm and stop allowing people to grow up in this country who hate this country so much that they'd like to blow us all up. That's what we've got to take. That's what we've got to safeguard ourselves from. You know, never mind the Russians, never mind the Iranians over in Iran. What about the Iranians who are here? What about the Russians who are here? What about the terrorist cells that are running around in this country that we don't know anything about? What about that? Can we fix that, please? Never mind buying planes in that can carry nuclear weapons. You know, we need some more police. We need some more, you know, armed forces with guns to protect us. That's what we need. 7:34.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:35. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Morning, Mike. Why do we have to buy weapon systems of an offensive nature, says Barry? Surely the priority should be the defence of the British Isles. Systems such as Iron Dome would be a good idea. Well, it would be. I mean, that's what's helped the Israelis survive for so long. Although, of course, in recent days and weeks, it hasn't been quite so effective against a barrage of intercontinental ballistic missiles coming from Iran. They're easy to deal with Hezbollah and easy to deal with Hamas coming from Gaza and Lebanon, but it's not so easy to deal with some of the bigger and longer range missiles coming from Iran, which have managed to get through and in some cases cause injury and even death in Israel. But you're right, we've got nothing like that. I mean, I remember talking to an MP down on College Green, where Hannah Whately was a moment ago, and who said basically, if Iran decided to launch a load of weapons at us, we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves. We don't even have anything like the Patriot system that they had, Israel had back in the days of the Gulf War, when they could actually fire other missiles out of the sky. We've got nothing like that. So, I mean, if somebody was to start attacking us and firing missiles at us, we would have literally no defences, which is not great, is it, really? But, I mean, I'm more concerned about the people who are already here, who don't have to fire a weapon. They can just blow themselves up, and they do. Quite frequently. Illegal economic migrants working. I thought there was a law passed a few years ago, says Stu, about employers who hired illegal immigrants, and if they were caught, they would receive a £10,000 fine. Well, yeah, there is a law in place for that. So when is actually somebody going to go knocking on the door of Uber Eats, Deliveroo, Just Eat and all the others to say, here's a £1 million fine? Thanks very much indeed. Let's talk to Lucy White, who's going to tell us her latest from her public policy background on the small boats crackdown, because, of course, we've heard this morning from a new borders chief who we never knew about before, who said we can't smash the gangs. Let's get a voice note first from Karen.
Hi, Mike. What I don't understand about these immigrants working is they're not paying tax or national insurance, and they're getting benefits and money on top, 3 meals a day, being kept warm in the hotel or cool, as it's quite hot out at the moment. I'm absolutely disgusted that this is happening. And all the while, the government is smashing us with tax. Smash the little people with tax. Smash the little people with more tax. It is disgusting. I'm telling you now, I am so angry. I cannot tell you how angry I am at this government. They have got to go.
Karen, you feel like everybody else feels in this country, this government is completely useless and completely and utterly clueless when it comes to stopping illegal migration. Lucy, very good morning to you. Hi, Lucy.
Hello, good morning. Great to be here, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Good to see you. I mean, extraordinary story in The Sun. Day 2 today. We've got them looking again at these ridiculous situations in hotels up and down the country where people are literally, just arriving, checking into their room, and as soon as they get themselves a phone, getting themselves on a bike and delivering food and making money, which they shouldn't be doing. The government is going to say, well, we're going to go and visit the companies next week. Why are they not just rounding them up now and arresting them?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And actually, there is a fine of up to £60,000 per illegal migrant working for a company.
Right.
And of course, Deliveroo might say, or Uber Eats and Just Eats, they might say, oh, but these are subcontractors. They aren't actually working with us. But these delivery companies are still facilitating illegal migrant working in this country. I believe they should each be paid £60,000 of a fine per illegal migrant working for them.
Right.
And that money, which will run into the billions, I calculated yesterday it can go up to, my little dog's saying hi, up to £2.3 billion. That money should be used to pay back the illegal migrant bill that we're paying, which is £6.4 billion a year.
Right. Because, there's no question that they're working for them, because, I mean, as much as Deliveroo and Uber Eats and all the rest of them can say, oh, yeah, they don't work for us, it's all subcontracted out. They're riding around with the box that says the company name. They're riding around with a jacket that says the company name. So, I'm sorry, I don't think that one's going to wash, is it?
No, of course not. I mean, this is literally, as we can see on the screen here on the TV roll, a Deliveroo guy, and it's an illegal migrant. We are not stupid. And I would like to say thank you to Karen for her voice note, because she's absolutely correct. The British people have had enough, and we're done with being taken for fools.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, this guy David Bolt, who's speaking yesterday in front of a House of Lords committee, I don't know if you've ever come across him before. I hadn't heard of him before. He's the Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration. He seems like a very estimable fellow. Have a look at what he had to say yesterday about smashing the gangs.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things. The challenge was to change the sort of risk-reward ratio for those people that are involved in organised immigration crime, and that was really quite a difficult thing to achieve, because it's relatively low cost, relatively low risk for those the perpetrators, and highly profitable. So I'm not sure I feel very optimistic about the ability to smash the gangs.
Yes, he's not optimistic, and neither am I. I suspect neither are you, Lucy.
Yeah, well, it doesn't take a genius to work out what David Bolt just said. I mean, this is obvious. The only way that we're going to stop this insanity is by detaining them before they even step foot on British soil. We need to be like Dubai. In Dubai, if you actually are a legal expat and you lose your job in Dubai, you have 30 days to get a new job and a new visa, or you are kicked out of the country.
Right.
In Dubai, if you do anything of what they would consider indecent behaviour, such as being, drunk and dancing on a table, the police will find you within 8 minutes. We also need to look at countries like Japan and Saudi Arabia that do not tolerate any illegal migration. Or let's take a look at even Australia. We are being taken for fools. And like I say, these people never should set foot on British soil. They must be detained instantly. That's the only way you smash the gangs. That's the only way you stop mass migration.
Well, I was saying earlier as well, you should also take the role that Australia took, which was to say, if you arrive on our shores as an illegal migrant, without papers, without permission to come, you will never be allowed to settle here, you will never be allowed to live here, and we will put you on an island somewhere in the middle of the Pacific, which is what they did. And it did cost quite a lot of money to do it. They did face quite a lot of criticism at the time, but it worked. And so in the end, that would also work for us. We could take them, and if, Rwanda wasn't back on the cards, because, nothing would surprise me with Keir Starmer. He's so unpopular, he literally grasping at anything to make it work. Put them on an island in the Outer Hebrides, which isn't occupied with anybody. There's plenty of islands that are uninhabited up there. They're not very pleasant and they're not very good. But we take a leaf out of the Americans book. I saw a story this morning. They're putting together a detention centre in Florida and a place called Alligator Alcatraz. They don't even have to put fences up, because all around it are sort of choppy waters filled with pythons and alligators. So nobody's going to escape.
Yeah, that sounds perfect to me, actually. We just need to stop this insanity. It's really not that difficult. And what's concerning is there are, at least 1.2 million illegal migrants who have arrived by boat in this country, and we need to act now. I don't understand why there's so much delay and so much whimper over this. And then we've also seen the story of a police force, I believe in sort of maybe around the Midlands area. They had to deliver a presentation to illegal migrants not to be abusing women. I mean, this is utter absurdity. Why are we allowing these women-hating, women-abusing men into our country? And I believe what we need to do as a policy is we need to scrap and then recreate a different version of the 1951 Refugee Convention.
Yeah.
Because back in 1951, when there was less sort of international travel, it would have been nearly impossible for migrants from parts of Africa or the Middle East to get to Britain. So when the 1951 Refugee Convention was created, I'm sure we would have assumed that these were refugees who were legitimate and coming from nearby territory within Europe, who shared cultural values similar to us. But now we have people from left, right and centre across the globe who share no values with us.
Right.
We have people that believe it's acceptable to rape women.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Pakistan. Why are there so many Pakistanis here in the UK? It makes zero sense. I think we need a blanket ban on these countries.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we've had 2 cases recently, haven't we? Forget about the Pakistani rape gangs. We've had 2 cases, one from Afghanistan, one from Qatar just yesterday, of individuals who basically made out that, you know, their culture was different to ours and they didn't understand that raping women was wrong. You know, I'm sorry, that is not a recipe for anything other than banning people from those countries from coming here, is it?
Yeah, exactly. I think they just all need to be banned, quite simply. And I think if a few people from one country are doing it, you know, sort of a bad reputation of that country, well, then that country has lost its chance to come here.
Yeah.
I think these cases alone just prove that people from those countries are just incompatible to live here, and they have no ability to integrate. And what also concerns me about this police giving a presentation to illegal migrants is, number one, how much did it cost the police to deliver and prepare that presentation?
Yeah.
Why are taxpayers' money being spent on these ludicrous presentations? And number two, why are the police sat in migrant hotels giving presentations when they should be out on the streets stopping crime? And number three, I actually disagree with the amount of people that just become British because they can obtain a passport and citizenship. I would also stop that in masses. But at least they take what is called a Life in the UK exam, which means they are taught about UK customs. These illegal migrants arrive here with no training, no understanding of British life. And like I say, they're not being detained. They are literally being put into hotels and dispersed across the country. This is pure insanity.
Yeah, absolutely right. Lucy, well said. Thank you very much indeed. Lucy White, public policy specialist there, talking a lot of common sense, it has to be said, about the illegal migrant problem that we've got. Front pages, once again, of The Sun today, covered in this story where you've got dozens and dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds of illegal migrants basically using food apps, delivering food to all sorts of places up and down the country, making up to £1,000 a week. Asylum seekers brazenly cycling in and out of taxpayer-funded hotels, wearing Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats uniforms. And these companies are busy saying, oh, well, nothing to do with us, Gov. Well, I'm sorry, it is something to do with you, Gov. Dan from Kent says, I've never used any of these fast food delivery companies, Mike, because I'm not a lazy git. I suggest people in this country stop taking fat jabs and get some exercise and go and get their burger and chips themselves. And Peter says, Mike, the only people that think Britannia is cool are the millions of immigrants that have been coming here legally and illegally for the last 25 years. They all know that we are a soft touch and that life here will benefit them. True. Let's get a voice note from Darren.
Morning, Mike. Darren over here in Holland. Since Keith Darlick's over here, I thought that I might take a leaf out of his book this morning. Started a new project on the building site this morning. So the foreman's asked me how many doors I'm going to put on today. Well, I said it might be 1. I said it could be 10. It might be 4. It might even be none. He's asked me how much it's going to cost, and I said, well, I don't really know, you know. And then I said to the foreman, have a look over there. And when he turned round, I ran away. So now I don't have to answer the question. So, yeah.
Well done you, Darren. Absolutely right, you know, because it could be up to 4, could be up to 10, it could be up to 20, just like the submarines that we're going to buy, that nobody knows how many there are. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Well played. Thank you very much indeed. Of course, we should say, by the way, people are spending less money now, apparently, on snacks, thanks to the fat jabs. According to a piece in the Mail today, a slice has been taken out of food sales. Demand for chocolate, crisps and biscuits is on the wane because so many people are on these fat jabs. Amazing, isn't it? Why are we giving so much of this stuff out? And why are people just not doing it more exercise? Seems ridiculous. 10 minutes to 8.
And it's not. It won't just be delivery drivers. It'll be, it'll be a bit of carpentry, it'll be a bit of cleaning, lots of cleaners. I mean, you can look out this window where we are in London. You can look across the city, and you can see the headquarters of some of these sandwich delivery firms that have basically taken over and become massive delivery firms, and they are being propped up by illegal labour.
So why aren't the companies being prosecuted?
That's a question for the Home Office. It's a question for the government, isn't it?
The Home Office will take about 6 years to look at it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up in the next hour, Esther McVey MP is going to be here. She's going to be telling us what she makes of what's going on, particularly the purchase of British jets from America. So they're not really British jets at all, they're actually American jets. This is not in keeping at all with what Keir Starmer said he was going to spend money on with the defence budget. He said he was going to use it to build up with the growth of our own economy. This from Ellie in Wales saying, morning, sorry, Elle in Wales, I should say. How refreshing to hear Trump say it as it is. I love this honesty from him. He certainly is describing an awful lot of things that we would say. People don't know what they're doing. Francis from Sussex says, why would the Conservatives lend their votes to help Labour? Is Kemi Bade not mad? Let it fail and the whole government fail. That's, of course, the welfare bill, which is coming up for a vote next Tuesday. And Darren in Cumbria says, morning, Mike. Is smashing the gangs the same as the war on drugs? They've been trying that for as long as I can remember, and nothing has changed. So what makes Stalin think it's going to be any different? Remove one and another one just steps in, for heaven's sake. Something like that. Let's talk to Justin Urquhart-Stewart, who is, of course, an economist, and not like Rachel Reeves. He's a proper economist. He actually knows what he's doing. Justin, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike.
Good to see you. Not many great indicators coming out of the Treasury or the government lately. I mean, we've got growth pretty much stagnating. We've got inflation sort of staying roughly where it was, I suppose. We haven't got any interest rates coming back down to help mortgage borrowers. So what's the prognosis for the next sort of month or so?
Well, one of the big problems is, of course, we've had this issue with America and are we having tariffs or not?
Yeah.
So to start with, we had a deal where I thought it was quite straightforward. Then, of course, we had Liberation Day, tariffs actually then going up all over the place, and then, of course, tariffs coming down because we've done a deal.
Yes.
But then, of course, the deal means actually tariffs end up higher than they were before. So anyone trying to run a business in the meantime would have said, well, hang on, am I going to do a deal now, or should I wait till we've got these new tariffs in? Oh, that's good news. Oh, it's bad news. Oh, I have no idea what's going on next. The result is we've been able to tell business that actually you don't have the confidence to actually know what happens next. One thing you need to be able to do if you're running an economy is give me some idea of what's going to happen over the next few years. You don't have to be right on everything, but give me an idea that I'm going to use investors' money to actually expand this business, to go out and buy goods and bring them in or make them or whatever we're doing. Give me some idea. If you don't give me any clear idea and you end up making life confusing, what happens? The answer is nothing. We end up just stopping. And when you stop, that means that the economy slows down. That means actually the speed of the economy slows, and that's when you start getting close to recession. And unless we're careful, we're going to be very close to that. And bear in mind, now, more than 65% of our economy is based on consumer spending. So really what you have to do if you really want to get things moving in this country is you encourage the consumer. And how you do that? Well, one of the best ways is, for instance, the opposite of what they did in the budget and the tax paper, with things like the stamp duty. Actually, get rid of stamp duty on houses, get people to move house. If they move house, they sort of change the kitchen, the bathroom, everything else goes. They spend an awful lot more money. And that, of course, means they're employing more people, paying more tax.
Yes.
That's how you start getting the retail side of it moving in a quicker time. Waiting for deals to be done on defence contracts, which we know take years. And we don't know whether they're going to be here or, as you quite rightly said, actually over in America. We have no idea at all.
No, exactly right. I think the housing market has actually slowed down quite considerably, more so than people are talking about, because of the stamp duty. Because I know personally a lot of people who are not moving, who are planning to move, but they don't want to pay the extra money in stamp duty. easier, particularly in the southeast, where it's quite a big percentage over and above whatever it is. I think it's 350,000 now, isn't it? So it's really quite a substantial amount of money that people would be forced to pay. So they're just not doing it.
A direct disincentive. And of course, the thing about stamp duty, it is one of those multipliers, because if you move house and you don't have to pay so much of that tax, because you're not using that tax, you're then going to be actually spending more money actually then doing up the place.
Yeah.
And so you're spreading out. It's not just money going to the government, you're spreading it out into the economy. That's how you actually then get more people getting more confidence that actually businesses are growing. So all those sort of elements make life much easier. Unfortunately, what you're seeing at the moment is everything is just telling us why we can't do things, and just a disincentive. You have to give people confidence that it might be growing one day in 5 years' time, and give us some idea actually what's happening over the next year or so. Where are these spending elements going to occur, or where are the opportunities going to be? We can then plan for that. Businesses need to plan. If they don't do that, they don't have the confidence. If they don't have confidence, nothing happens.
Exactly right. And we keep being told, though, by Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer that, we're fixing the foundations, the economy's growing, business is booming, we're back in business. He put out a video, one of those ridiculous videos with the stupid music on it, just a couple of days ago, saying, Britain's back in business. There are lots of pictures of him shaking hands with people at Jaguar Land Rover. Well, it doesn't really mean anything to the man on the street or the woman on the street.
No, what they need to know is actually, are they actually going to get more money in their pocket to be able to go out and spend? And merely coming up with big issues with regard to car deals, in terms of trade deals and things like that, are fine. That's a great base for good headlines, but doesn't affect the individuals directly. You need to be able to get through to the individuals and their own spending. And how do you do that? What are the things they're going to be spending money? It'll be directly things like food. It will be housing, those areas. And of course, really sorting out, and they haven't been able to address this, in terms of power and the extra costs they've had in terms of energy, and we're not clear what we're going to be spending over the next few years. We know we need to have much more capability, and we've still got a position where businesses are reluctant to set up in Britain, because if they set up in Britain, you're spending 20% more on electricity than any other country.
Yeah.
We've designed the basic infrastructure to be too expensive. You have to go back to brass tacks and saying, right, if you're running a business here, how much is your power going to cost you? Right, if it's too expensive, what do we have to do to reduce that cost? Otherwise, people will just go elsewhere.
I know, it's totally insane. I don't know why they're thinking that this is a good idea. Justin, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Justin Urquhart-Stewart telling us that there's nothing great on the horizon financially or economically for this government or for the rest of us, I'm afraid. So you might as well just batten down the hatches and try not to spend any money. Good luck with that. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. So Tobias Ellwood, former minister with the British government, supposedly on the right of politics in the Conservative Party, has the opinion that illegal migration is basically all our own fault and we deserve it. Same opinion as the green-haired vegan with a bone through her nose who's banging placards every weekend. Thanks for that, Toby. Now we know where the Tories stand, and that is exactly why Reform are going to be 30% in the polls and the Tories are going to be 10. Exactly that.
Absolutely right, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. It is extraordinary, isn't it? And when you say, well, hang on, you were the chair of the Defence Committee, but you didn't manage to spend any money on defence. Didn't you have any influence at all? What were you doing? This from Darryl. Morning, Mike. The amount of immigrant food delivery driving is rife. The times I've used Just Eat, Uber Eats, etc., it shows a picture of a person and a name. The amount of times a different person, and even sometimes the opposite sex turns up, is off the scale. Keep up the good work. Well, this is it. I mean, why am I the only person that seems to know this stuff? The Sun have done a fantastic expose. Everybody knows precisely what's been going on. Even Chris Philp has done a video now to show where these bikes are, to show where these hotels are. And yet, still, the government, who has had it handed to them on a plate, are not doing anything about it. Why are they not, as Theo Usherwood said, going down to these hotels, confiscating the bikes, arresting the people on the bikes, and locking them up until they can deport them? What's going on? This is Talk.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. Yeah. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham. We're here, of course, for the duration. Another couple of hours to go. We've been here since 6 a.m. 4 glorious hours of Morning Glory every single weekday morning from 6 until 10, followed by a podcast. If you miss any of it, there's a podcast that goes out every single day, around about 10:15, 10:30, something like that. Don't forget Plank of the Week coming up at the end of this week as well on Friday. Plenty of plankery to talk about this week, I have to say. Goodness gracious me. Keir Starmer's currently speaking at the NATO summit. We're not going to bother boring you with any of that, though, because I'm sure you're not interested, because it will just be more lies, more absolute obfuscation, and more promises that he won't be able to keep. Coming up, Esther McVeigh's going to be talking to us, the former Minister for Common Sense. Also, the newest Reform MP, Sarah Pochin, is going to join us right here in the studio. Let's get a voice note first, though, from Sean.
Morning, Mike. Sean from Grimsby. A couple of weeks ago, the Prime Minister told us we was on a war footing, and then he told us yesterday that we could be under attack on our own soil by Russia and China and Iran, and then he also said that we're going to up defence spending to 5% in 9 years. So are we on a war footing now, or are we on a war footing in 9 years, or is he just lying? You know, that's what I'd like to know. Great show, Mike.
Thank you very much indeed, Sean. Well, I mean, let's see. When we find out what he's got to say at the NATO summit, we might get some kind of clue as to whether or not we're on a war footing. What I can tell you is that if we are on a war footing now, it's not a very good one, because it was only last week that RAF Bryce Norton got broken into by a couple of scallies from Palestine Action, who weren't even armed with guns. They were armed with a scooter, an electric scooter. They managed to get through the fence, which looks like something you'd put around your back garden if you lived in a very safe area of southeast England. Right? They went in, they ruined the planes, 2 planes they attacked with paint, ruined them to the tune of about 25 million quid. They chucked paint over the engines so they couldn't fly, and then they left. And they weren't even apprehended before they went out the gates and went out the fence. And so RAF Bryce Norton, for heaven's sake, pull your socks up. people. So if that's a war footing, then we're in a great deal of trouble. Meanwhile, the papers this morning are telling us that we're going to buy a load of planes from America. Keir Starmer, of course, said that what we were going to do with defence was going to build up our own defences using our own people, using our own resources, using our own money, and therefore creating jobs, creating growth, creating business for Britain. Instead of which, we're now buying it all from America. What do you think Donald Trump's got to say about Keir Starmer?
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
I'm afraid you have to agree, don't you? This is, of course, Morning Glory. We know what we're doing. This is the only place to get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Let's get it on. Sean in Gloucester says, morning, Mike. Every day Keith Starling finds other ways to totally enrage me and a lot of others, I'm sure. Why can't he just go away and live happily ever after with Lord Ali and leave us alone? Well, why can't he? I wish he would. Morning, Mike. Love you. Did Starmer not say that he was going to use money from Russian frozen assets for funding? Did it ever happen? Or is that on the ever-expanding Porky Mountain? Says Chrissy. Oh, yeah, I remember that. He does say a lot of things that then get completely forgotten about. Let's find out. Esther McVeigh's here, former Minister for Common Sense, of course. Esther, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Do you remember when he said that he was going to use all that money from frozen Russian assets? Whatever happened to that?
Well, he says a lot and does very little. And now he's been the Prime Minister for almost a year.
Right.
People are recognising this. He says whatever he needs to say to get him out of a hole at that moment. So you'll see that he talked about he needed growth after that terrible budget. He needed businesses doing well. He also looked at the benefits bill and he realised he needed people into work. And then he also realised he wasn't doing enough in defence and he had to do more there. So all he did was link the three up. We're going to grow, we're going to get people into work, and we're going to solve the defence problem. So he links all those up. He talks, it's empty words, but he's not doing the hard graft to get any of those issues solved individually. And we always questioned what was the trade deal with America going to be. We never knew. He touted it as being wonderful. Well, maybe this, we're buying all of this, these planes, etc., from America was part of a lousy trade deal.
Right.
He's a desperate, weak man, and everybody knows they can get what they want from him.
Exactly right. I mean, he wouldn't be the worst negotiator in the history of negotiating, you know, because everything we've ever negotiated under this Labour government seems to cost us a load of money. You know, I don't know how much we're spending. I think it's going to be close to £1 billion we're going to be spending on these planes that we're buying in from the USA. And apparently they're going to be carrying nuclear warheads, which we'll also buy from there. 12 F-35A fighter planes, which I'm told cost about 80 million each or something like that. So an awful lot of money going that way. He also told us that he had the trade deal done before it was done, didn't he?
Precisely. Like I said, he is just a man of empty words. And by the way, his party are now saying how weak he is and that they can push him around. And when they see things they don't like, because they wouldn't have liked the increase spending in defence, most politicians have always preferred soft power, hence they let the foreign aid budget increase instead of hard power, and you need hard power. So they won't want to see the defence increasing, but you've also seen they don't want the benefits bill cut as well.
Right.
And that's why all of his MPs now are bullying him and telling him what to do, because they've seen he's done so many U-turns in such a small space of time. They're going to bully him into this.
Well, he's going to disappear, you know, the dodo like his own backside if he keeps doing any more U-turns, isn't he? I mean, because looking at the front page of the Mail today, it looks as though even the, as you say, the welfare bill is now in question because there's going to be a rebellion. So even with the big 165 majority that he's got, he's likely to lose it. And I'm seeing signs as well, I don't know if you've seen these, Esther, and I don't know what you think about this, that he might actually pull the bill altogether on Tuesday because he's so frightened of losing that he could postpone it till autumn. And I think if he does that, that's a real slap in the face for democracy, I think.
Right, so I've been the Deputy Chief Whip at difficult times. So I was there when we needed the Brexit votes coming through. I also went back into Cabinet when we needed the Rwanda bill to go through. But can I tell you, he's doing absolutely everything wrong. His whips should have known a long time ago there was problems with what they were doing. Yeah. And they knew that straight away, because remember, this was an ill-thought-through benefit change because they just needed the £5 billion to save Rachel Reeves. Right. And they said, where can we get that? Oh, we'll get it from benefits. You cannot do that with benefits. You certainly can't change disability benefits like that. No. So straight away there were rumblings. His whips should have known that, and they should have said, look, we need to have discussions on what you're going to do. We need to change what they're doing. They never did that, and they let it rumble on and go bigger and bigger and bigger. It is now at a size, I would say, that it would be impossible for him to reverse. And remember, he's also lost a whip from the whip's office. She, if she doesn't agree with it and doesn't agree with what's going on, can actually do a whipping operation in the other way. Right. And who else have they got heading up this revolt within the Labour Party? They've got people who are on, like, senior members of Parliament who are select committees, chair of select committees. So can I tell you, this is in a bad way.
No, it really is.
I guess his easy way out is to delay the vote. I believe he's also trying to apply pressure on the Speaker not to call that amendment. Can I tell you, if he did that, or if he tried to do that, remember what he did last time when he applied pressure over calling a vote in the House. It ended badly. So he's now going to try and do all these things because he never solved the problem at the beginning. And all of this was to bail Rachel Reeves out of her disastrous budget.
Because a lot of people tell me that if this budget, if this welfare bill does fall, or even if it gets put off until the autumn, she's basically toast. Do you think that's right?
I think she'll need to be, yes. I think they burnt through all their credit and goodwill with their backbenchers trying to save her. Right. It was a disastrous budget, and it goes back to then. In fact, it goes back prior to then. It goes back when she talked about the winter fuel payment and saving £1.4 billion. She was going to take the tough decisions that was needed. She was going to be this, iron chancellor. She was the first female chancellor. She's been a disaster. She didn't know what she was doing. I said straight away, so I led the charge. I worked with the Express newspaper to say this needs to be U-turned, the withdrawal of the winter fuel payment. Basic politics she got wrong, and it's all flowed from there. So yes, I think she will need to go. I won't want to do that, because we all know, you've said it before, once a chancellor goes, usually Prime Minister follows. But I think in this instance, he's going to have to sever her, get rid of her, because otherwise he'll lose the whole party.
Yeah, she's a total liability. Let's look at what the Sun have done this morning. Day 2 of their investigation into the Deliveroo, Just Eats and Uber Eats scandal. They're all, of course, denying that they've got any complicity here. But, I mean, it's clearly a very obviously bad situation for this government, because they're not only allowing people to land on our shores without any kind of checks or balances as to who they are, but literally within hours of them getting here, they're now all going to work for these food delivery companies. Even Chris Philp has gone out and found some of them. Have a look at this.
So we're at the hotel here. You can see there's a lot of Just Eat bikes here, a lot of Deliveroo bikes, loads of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, loads and loads of these bikes here. They look as if they're being used for delivery company work. Uber Eats, I can see an Uber Eats bike over there as well. Lots and lots of these bikes here. So let's try and find out a bit more about what's going on. So I've just spoken to the shopkeeper in the shop behind me. He confirmed the hotel is an asylum hotel, and people, he said, arrived on small boats are now staying there. And he also said he's seen lots of the residents of the hotel doing work on Uber Eats, on Deliveroo, and those kind of companies. So obviously working illegally.
So that's a very obvious migrant hotel. There's dozens of bikes outside it. You know, it looks like they're all working for these companies. Deliveroo said to The Sun, "We have zero tolerance for any misuse of our platform, and any accounts which fail to meet their legal obligations will be off-boarded." Just Eat have said, "We set clear standards and requirements for those who deliver on our behalf." And Uber said, "All couriers who use the Uber Eats app must undergo checks to ensure they have a legal right to work in the UK." Well, you know, good luck with convincing anybody of all that, because these people are clearly migrants in a migrant hotel working for these guys.
Well, I'm absolutely furious with all of this, and it was so obvious. If you look at it, is this the combination of all of Labour's policies here? One, you've got the immigration, you've got cost, you've got tax, you've got letting people out of prison and criminality, and you've also got the budget as well, because you've got the rise in the black economy and criminality. And all of these things, I would have thought, would have been obvious this was going to happen. You know, next you've got to say, and what are these Deliveroo bikes delivering? Is this yet more criminality? So they're here illegally, they're working illegally, they might be delivering things illegally, no money's going into the tax system, and it is take. And the people who are employing them aren't paying tax, they're getting them at a cheaper rate, because you know what? They're not paying for a mortgage, they're not paying for any rent. This basically is spendings. Look, a state of emergency does need to be called ASAP. The Labour government needs to bring Rwanda back ASAP. We've talked about this many times. They need to get rid of the European Convention on Human Rights. They need to get rid of the Human Rights Act at the same time. They're not doing anything on the floor of the House. Mike, we need to be on the floor of the House with this emergency legislation straight away. Otherwise, we will be the home of immigration and criminality. And I'm afraid that is what a human rights lawyer at the top of this government is turning our country into. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, it really is.
I've never been so angry.
No, I can tell. I mean, I've never seen you so angry, because people are, though. People are furious. They've had enough. They're sick to death of having the mickey taken out of them. You know, they're struggling to make ends meet. Some people can't even afford to get this food delivered because it's that expensive. But these characters, as you say, living rent-free, making money, paying no tax, living life very, very nicely, thank you very much indeed, no responsibilities, and we're encouraging them to do it. And Keir Starmer says, oh, we're going to smash the gangs. Well, how about you get down there right now to that hotel where Chris Philp was, and every other hotel where you see bikes outside, you take the bikes off them, you crush them in some kind of crusher. He was always talking about crushing things, and then arrest the people, put them in a detention centre and deport them all. Surely to God, that's what they should be doing.
Absolutely, and they never listened to the words of David Bolt. You were talking about him a little bit earlier on, the civil servant who actually, prior to his current job, he was in the precursor of the National Crime Agency, and prior to that, from about the 70s, I've got it to 2001, he worked at MI5, so on operations and policy, and he wrote, and he said, look, this isn't going to work, what you're talking about. The smashing the gangs isn't going to work. He sort of said low cost, low risk, high reward. It's not going to work. Now, when a civil servant writes to you and says this, it wouldn't be made public straight away, because they write to you and give you the benefit of the doubt and say, look, this is why we think it isn't going to work. And it's quite an extreme thing for a civil servant to write that. Remember, you're the politician, you've been voted in, and this is your direction of travel on which you've got a manifesto and which you've been voted in. But obviously, they're all coming out now saying, I told you so. So all I can say is Starmer and his team and Lord Hermer, or as you call him and I call him Lord Harmer, are naive in the extreme. They are not leaders. They get given a brief as lawyers and they argue it. And that's why we find now Starmer is staying out the way. It's all got a little bit difficult for him. He doesn't really know what to say now. He says sort of these platitudes, doesn't he? Which is, it's not working, smash the gangs, I'll get it working, the benefit system isn't right. But with no way of how he's going to solve it. He's just realised being a leader is a lot more difficult than having a few, like I say, platitudes up his sleeve.
Yeah, absolutely right. Couldn't agree with you more. Esther, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Esther McVeigh, not happy, very angry about all of this business with the Deliveroo drivers. It's absolutely ridiculous. Former Minister for Common Sense, of course, still an MP. Let's get a voice note from Steve.
Good morning, Mike. It's Stephen Harts. We're all concentrating on the delivery drivers at the moment because of the Sun's expose. But I can tell you that these fellas are working in chicken shops, Turkish barbers, they're working as sex workers, they're working as taxi drivers. They're all over the black economy, and it's costing the British taxpayer an absolute fortune in lost tax revenues. And we're keeping these guys for free in hotels. But what a life. I'd love for the government to be paying for my mortgage, for paying for all my bills, sending me a few quid for me fags and me cans of Coke every day, and then I'm earning on top and not having to pay any tax. Wow, No wonder they're coming in droves.
Yeah, because not only have they come here for a better life, they're now coming here to actually make money. And that's the real bottom line with this story. That's what's really going on here. These people aren't just coming because they're running away from a war zone, which many of them are not anyway. These people are coming here to make a living because they can, because there's no tax, there's no rent to pay, there's no mortgage to pay. Don't even have to pay for your food, you get that free as well. Unbelievable. What is going on? Got this from Darren, who says, by the way, Mike, the Royal Navy is selling our 2 amphibious landing ships to the Brazilian Navy. Why don't they park them in the channel and collect the illegals, then redeliver them back to the south of France after photographing and fingerprinting them? Why don't they indeed? Why are we selling it to the Brazilian Navy? Goodness gracious me. If you asked Donald Trump what was going on, what do you think he'd say?
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I do. You're absolutely right. It's 20 past 8.
We're being taken for absolute fools.
Yep.
You know, I've got 4 of these, and I go to work every single day of the week. I get on the tube, I get on the train, and I get through the network and I go to work. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to be a builder anytime soon. I'm also in practice as a chartered accountant for the 4th day of the week, that if I'm not in Parliament, and I'm also the director of the Global Warming Policy Foundation. So I actually hold down 3 sort of jobs. I can do it. For heaven's sake, Britain, get off your backside and do it again.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:22. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. We're going to speak to Alp Mehmet very shortly, Chairman of Migration Watch. Got this from Dean in Dagenham. He says, morning, Mike. It's not just Labour, but it seems the majority of Parliament have had utter contempt for the UK and British people for decades. It sickens me, and I wonder how these charlatans sleep of a night. And to think we pay their salaries, God help our kids' futures. They really do seem to be messing it up far, far quicker, though, even than the Tories did in the last 14 years that they had to run the country. But the benefits going on now to these illegal migrants are really, really winding people up. It's just another example of our broken borders. Alp Mehmet's here, Chairman of Migration Watch UK. He's written a big piece on page 10 of The Sun today. Del Boy would be proud of illegals' food bike scam. It must be stopped. Alp, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I mean, the thing that's really winding people up, and even Esther McVeigh was getting exercised, I've never seen that before, is the fact that, you know, what we're now finding out is not only are these people coming to this country because they are economic migrants, because they want a better life than the one they've got wherever they came from, whether it's Eritrea or Afghanistan or Iran or Libya, the Republic of Congo, you name it. They're actually coming here to make a living. They're able to come here, live rent-free, get a job delivering some of this food to people, and whether it's Deliveroo, Uber Eats, whether it's Just Eat, they get a free electric bike. They pay a small sum of money to somebody to use an illegal system to make their own profits. And they're basically coming here to make a business.
Really? They're not only coming here illegally, they're not only coming here and then being looked after royally by the rest of us, the taxpayer is actually paying for it all.
Yeah.
It's all so easy. The traffickers know that they will get them here and into jobs almost within minutes of arrival. And that is what sticks in everyone's craw. The government, when it was going to do something about it, they told us how much they were going to stop it on, how they're going to stop it. They were going to smash the gangs.
Right.
We haven't heard very much about that in recent days, have we? Since they came into office, nearly 42,000 have crossed the channel illegally that we know about.
Right.
Since the beginning of this year, nearly 18,500 have crossed. It's 50% more than it was in 2022 when we had 46,000 by the end of the year. If this continues, by the end of this year, we could be getting something in the region of around 60,000 people crossing the channel. It's a disgrace, really, and the government should be ashamed.
Well, they really should, because actually, you say we haven't heard much from Keir Starmer about smashing the gangs, because he's obviously given up on that. But have a look at this. This is David Bolt, who is one of the heads of the Borders organisation. He's not the Borders Czar. He seems to be quite an estimable guy. I didn't know much about him, but he used to be at MI5. He was with the National Crime Agency. Have a look at what he said about smashing the gangs.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things. The challenge was to change the sort of risk-reward ratio for those people that are involved in organised immigration crime, and that was really quite a difficult thing to achieve, because it's relatively low cost, relatively low risk for those the perpetrators, and highly profitable. So I'm not sure I feel very optimistic about the ability to smash the gangs.
In other words, you might say,
they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Yeah, that's David Bolt. He's the Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration. I mean, I've never come across this guy before, but he seems pretty sensible.
Yeah, he's been there for a while, actually, and indeed the government kept him on from his first stint in the job. He is sensible. We've all been saying this ever since the phrase was first uttered. You're not going to do it. And I've said time and time again, they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And you only have to listen to what the ministers have been saying this time round, when this has suddenly come to the front of our attention. Diana Johnson, the policing minister, says we've got to do something about this because it has an impact on jobs, it has an impact on local jobs, on earnings. Yes, indeed. And the minister responsible, Dame Angela Eagle, she actually has said, really, is it going on? I'd better have a word with the companies here.
Yeah.
Now, why haven't they done that already? What they should be doing, and should have been doing for some time, is picking up these people. Perfectly easy, as everyone has shown over the last few days. It's perfectly easy to locate them, pick them up, lock them up, say to them, you're never going to be granted asylum, and you're leaving at the first opportunity. Also, make the companies more responsible. Why do they allow the selling on of accounts that they've dished out? Why don't they check people more carefully?
Right. I mean, they claim that they do. They claim that they do, but they obviously aren't doing it well enough,
They don't, Mike. It's simply, there's no evidence there that they're doing it. That's the problem. They can get away with it. If you were to... punitive measures really is what's required with regard to the companies. You're not going to get away with taking on people who are working illegally, and that seems to be forgotten, that they are working without permission. They're not supposed to be working, and yet Deliveroo, Uber Eats, and the rest of them are making, what, 15 billion quid a year is what is the turnover is. There's huge money, and we're just simply standing back and letting them get away with
and
it.
People have been in touch with us. I mean, Mark has sent me this on Twitter saying, don't forget, Mike, we also are paying for them to charge their electric bikes on the hotel's electric bill, which is another thing we're giving them for free. But also, people are telling me that, you know, forget about just the people working for these food delivery companies. They're working as taxi drivers, they're working in, you know, Turkish barber shops, they're working in nail bars, they're working as prostitutes, they're working all sorts of illegal businesses in this country. The black economy is thriving as a result of all these illegal migrants who are coming here.
And we give them a bit of pocket money as well. Nearly 50 quid a week.
Yeah, well, I'm getting calls today from people saying, that's great, isn't it? You know, I've got to pay my mortgage, I've got to pay my taxes, I've got to pay VAT on all the food that I buy. These guys are getting everything for free, and now they're able to work as well without having to pay any tax whatsoever.
Well, really, is it any wonder that people think that whenever this government says we're going to do something about it, that the opposite happens? They actually end up encouraging people to cross the channel. They end up encouraging people to stay on illegally because we won't do anything about it. We won't remove them. And until we change our laws and say that those who come in illegally cannot stay, and indeed anyone who breaks the law is going to be removed. That's what we need to do.
I know. It's absolutely extraordinary. Incredible. Alp, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Alp Mehmet today there writing in The Sun, chairman of Migration Watch. Del Boy would be proud of the illegals' food bike scam. It must be stopped. Let's get a voice note from Craig.
Just regarding these so-called asylum seekers and their use of these apps to do food deliveries. Well, okay, if you upgrade your phone and you have your old phone and new phone, you'll know that your banking apps only work on one device at one time. So this is what those food delivery companies need to implement on their platform so that the app can only work on one device. So when they're asked randomly throughout the day to provide photo identification, you know, look at the camera to prove that it's the registered person who's the account holder, then they won't be able to do it because you can't run the account on two devices simultaneously. That's what needs to be done.
Yeah, well, that would be certainly one safeguard, Craig. What needs to really be done, though, is to stop these people coming here so they can't take advantage of these loopholes in the law, which allow them to make money in addition to getting a load of free stuff and free housing and free food. It's incredible. Let's have a look at what people are saying on the Sun Letters page today. This one from Leslie in the West Midlands. If there is anyone left who does not believe the UK's borders are completely broken, just look at the rows of food delivery bikes parked up outside migrant hotels. As the Sun has shown, illegal migrants earn nearly £1,000 a week from black market work on Deliveroo and other food delivery apps while living in asylum accommodation. Talk about us being taken for a ride. It makes my blood boil. And Mark in Tyne and Weir says illegal migrants coming here and taking food delivery jobs on the sly while housed in cushy hotels paid for by the taxpayer is yet another slap in the face for hard-working Brits. So is this government going to sort this, or as per usual, just roll over and carry on? That's the Sun Letters page. That's just a flavour of it. I mean, there's an awful lot of people very, very angry this morning with not only what this government isn't doing to safeguard our shores, but what it's now allowing people to do, which is to come here and literally take the mickey out of our tax system, take the mickey out of our benefit system, take the mickey out of our generosity, coming here to live for free, to work and earn money, which they don't have to pay tax on, and just do whatever the hell they like without any fear or favour of being arrested, deported or locked up. Marvellous, isn't it? Welcome to Britain.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:36. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Dave in Aberdeen says, morning, Mike. On the welfare bill, all these so-called rebel MPs will fall into line by next week, claiming to have got concessions. They don't want a general election and they don't want to lose their jobs. Well, yeah, but I think what they're doing is they're looking down, the wrong end of a barrel of a gun, thinking that, well, we are going to lose our jobs, whether it's now or whether it's in 2029. They're certainly not going to be around very long, are they? Margaret in Tunisia says, why does Keith Stalin, etc., make all these announcements with a large audience standing behind him? You can tell from their expressions that they don't believe anything they're hearing. It's hilarious to watch. And Jim says, illegals delivering pizzas for £1,000 a week. What else are they delivering? A drug superhighway hidden in plain sight. As I said earlier, you can easily make that kind of money if you're picking up multiple orders every single time you go anywhere. You know, if you go to one of these dark kitchens, you're picking up 5 orders, you can deliver those in an hour, that's 25 quid right there in an hour. You know, that's pretty good money. That's better than minimum wage, double minimum wage, isn't it? Let's go over to the Middle East. Dan Pfefferman is here, former national security analyst and intelligence officer specialising in Middle East affairs. He's in Tel Aviv this morning. Dan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well indeed. How are you, probably more to the point, because obviously it's been a pretty rocky few days. The ceasefire was broken pretty soon after it was set yesterday by the Iranians. Israel, I think, retaliated. What happened after that?
So far, we're all kind of waiting around to see what goes on with this, but this entire 2 weeks has been an absolute roller coaster in an otherwise not unboring last 2 years of constant conflicts and ceasefires here in our part of the world. The ceasefire was announced by President Trump, but throughout the night we could not find any real Iranian verification that they had agreed to it. And then, of course, we were very rudely awoken here to a massive missile barrage at 5 in the morning that kept us in the bomb shelter for over 2 hours. And unfortunately, a building was hit in the southern Israeli city of Beersheba, in which an entire family was murdered in the strike. A mom and her children, and the entire family was killed. And so we kind of waited throughout the day to see, is this real? Is this a real ceasefire? And the best we got from the Iranians is that they will stop firing if Israel stops firing.
Right.
And so now it looks like it's holding. Now it looks like, you know, from a civilian perspective, it's kind of one of these, well, is this really a ceasefire? They broke it. From an analyst perspective, we're understanding that this is their face-saving, parting shot to show that they have the upper hand here.
Sure. I mean, in Israel's statement yesterday, they said that they'd achieved pretty much what they wanted to achieve. That, I presume, is still the case. But as far as what happened in Iran on sort of the early hours of Sunday morning, there's conflicting reports now as to how much damage actually the American bombing did. What's your information on that?
I'm trying to, scrape together the public discourse on this. Of course, I'm not privy to the intelligence these days, but it would be very strange to me that the largest and most powerful intelligence agency in the world, the United States, and then the one with probably the best intelligence on Iran, would conduct such a dangerous strike with the danger of escalation as both Israel and the United States did for just a setback of a few months. That would seem to me a very strange and kind of waste of a good military strike, if you will.
Right.
And so it's hard for me to take those conclusions seriously. I would also say, and something that we posted last night on our platform, Middle East 24, is that it's not just the direct hit to the sites itself. You're looking at an entire supply chain of a massive nationwide nuclear program, including offing senior nuclear scientists who are really irreplaceable. And so it's not just, did you hit one site, did you set one site back or not? A centrifuge or a building can be replaced. Did you disrupt the entire sophisticated mechanism that is a military nuclear weapons program?
Right. And certainly Iran's retaliation by going into Qatar and firing a few missiles at that Air Force base there, which was not just a US one but an international one. I mean, that was pretty weak-minded in the end, really, wasn't it? I mean, they told everyone they were going to do it. It was really just a performative exercise for their own population, wasn't it?
This entire country, I'm talking about Iran, I'm talking about this regime, is performative. That's really all they can do.
Yeah.
It's quite a sham, and they proved themselves time and again over the last year to be a paper tiger militarily. And so every time I hear those in the West say this is going to lead to World War III, this is an escalation, what people in the West really don't understand is that Iran has been escalating against the West and against the moderates in the Middle East for decades. Iran has been escalating against Israel with everything it has for the last few hundred days, and especially the last 2 weeks. There's not much more it can escalate. So this is really a kind of theatrical, performative act on a part of a desperate regime to show that it's not as weak as it truly is.
Right. And what about their money? Because obviously the money's important to funnel towards Hamas and to Hezbollah and to the Houthis. How much of that will still continue to happen?
Oh, it's hard for me to see that happening. You're talking about two aspects. First, Iran is broke. Iran has been broke for some time. And this is one of these things that I also remind Western audiences. Sanctions work, especially when they're upheld. They really brought Iran to the negotiating table. There's two things that work to bring Iran and other rogue regimes to the negotiating table. One is sanctions, especially on the oil, and the other is the threat of military force that then you have to back up at some time or another. The only way to get Iran to comply with international demands is that they're going to be broke. They already were prior to this. They used to funnel nearly $1 billion to Hezbollah every year, millions and millions to Hamas. But the other thing that happened in the final hours of the Israeli strike is the actual intermediary, the IRGC intermediary who funneled the money and built the smuggling and the money transfer mechanisms was killed in an Israeli airstrike. So it's going to be a bleak year for Iran's proxies around the region as well.
Yeah. So would you expect this ceasefire then to kind of remain in place for quite some time?
I do, and only because Iran is so weak.
Yeah.
I think Iran very tactically and very practically knows that it's in its interest right now to sit back, to lick its wounds, and to try to recollect and strike probably through proxies at a time of its choosing. It likes to use proxies because of deniability. And it's going to find a way to get back at Israel. And anyone who thinks that this war started 12 days ago is just mistaken. And anyone who thinks that it ended yesterday is also mistaken. The battle within the war is over for now. Unfortunately, we here in the Middle East have to bear the brunt of Iran's constant radicalism and aggression.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Dan, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Dan Pfefferman there, former National Security Analyst and Intelligence Officer specialising in Middle East affairs, live from Tel Aviv. Let's get a voice note from Brendan.
Morning, Mike. Brendan from London here. Just regarding the UK having its own Iron Dome system, as fabulous as that would be, the problem for us is the person who's be in charge of firing it up would probably be working from home. So we'd have to wait 45 minutes to an hour for them to get into the office to turn the thing on, by which point we'd all be blown to smithereens. But, it's all fun and games. Have a good day, Mike.
Brendan, thank you very much indeed. Sadly, it is fun and games until actually you need something proper to happen. Phil in Coventry says, remember when this diabolical government said that the adults were now in charge? What a joke. More like the lunatics have taken over the asylum. And Linda in Stallybridge says, when Starmer says he'll increase defence spending by 5% on GDP, we will soon be in recession. 5% of nothing is nothing. True that. Let's talk to David, who's in Gloucestershire, wants to talk about the government and why they're not going after the illegal migrants' employers. David, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. What can I do for you, sir?
Well, I just had a thought, if they actually turn all these illegals into legals and they started paying tax, etc., surely that would be where the government would have their growth, would it not? So, in a way, it would be in their interest to sort this out pretty quick ASAP.
Yeah.
And actually start getting the growth that they're so desperate for.
But the problem is, though, David, that means they're then actually employing illegal migrants to feed the growth of the United Kingdom. And we don't want them to do that, do we? Because we don't want them to encourage these people to come here and work legally.
Well, no, but they're only coming here because they are illegals. If they turn themselves legal, they would then stop them anyway, because it wouldn't be the encouragement, would it? If they had to start paying, if they were then legal, they would then have to start paying rent wherever it is that they were staying, etc., etc., etc.
So what do you think would happen then? You know what would happen then? If you started saying to them, now you've got to pay rent, you've now got to pay tax, they'd just go on the dole, wouldn't they? And then they'd just be on the welfare bill.
Yeah, but they're doing that anyway. So, I mean, it's, well, I don't know. But I'm just saying, basically, it is what it is.
I prefer arresting them and kicking them out of the country, to be honest.
Well, yeah, so would I. I mean, but I was just basically trying to say that it would stop it.
Yeah. No, I take your point. I take your point.
They are being encouraged.
Yeah, I take your point.
If they return legal, I mean, we've got to get down to delivery. I mean, they should be on Deliveroo's and whatever order. They should be at their head office this morning saying, right, we think you owe us X amount of £1 billion. If you don't pay it, we're going to shut you down.
Well, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. I mean, at the end of the day, David, the Home Office knows where all these hotels are. All they've got to do is send people to where the hotels are. If they see any bikes outside, they take the bikes, they crush them, they find out who's riding them, they take them and deport them. That's what they should be doing.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward stuff. David, thank you very much indeed. It's easy to stop the food delivery companies employing illegal migrants. We should all stop ordering takeaway food via them. See how quickly they get their house in order then, says James, in the West Midlands. And morning, Mike, with the delivery riders, I'd be concerned with what extra sauce was on or in food that you didn't ask for, or wait till some unfettered nutter turns up. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. As I say, I tend not to use these people, so I don't know whether anybody's had some maniacal bloke turn up with your food. I don't know. They seem to be happy enough just to make the money. It's a bizarre situation, though, isn't it? And it's got to stop. Thanks to the Sun, we know what's going on. And also, even Chris Philp knows where there's one of these migrant hotels full of bikes parked outside, full of people working illegally on the black market, not paying tax and living for nothing. Brilliant, isn't it? It's a great life. No wonder they're coming here in thousands. Coming up, we're going to talk to Rear Admiral Chris Parry. We'll get his take on the NATO summit, which is underway. We'll find out what Keir Starmer's been saying as well. This is Talk.
Kind of symbolic attempted strike with strikes on other air bases or US bases in the region. I mean, the biggest one is in Bahrain. A lot of nervousness there, but Iran signaled that it was going to do this to the base in Qatar, and that does suggest that this is sort of a bit of a face-saving exercise. That's very much the hope, that this is a symbolic thing they can show to their domestic audience.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 10 minutes to 9. The time is flying by. I'm not quite sure how. Carol in Shoreham by Sea says, "Morning, Mike. Your banner is showing we must prepare for war with attacks on UK soil. Can you please tell us who issued this warning and who's going to attack us? My belief is we have more than enough invaders in our country already to do us plenty of harm. Is that who they are referring to? Just stop all benefits now. They won't want to come if they cannot get a free life. Great show as always." Well, listen, they're not only coming here for the benefits, they're now coming here to work in the black economy. We sort of always knew it, but thanks to the Sun, we now know that it's happening literally as we speak in front of our very eyes. It's going on, and yet the Home Office and the government don't want to do anything about it. Coming up in the next hour, Sarah Poachin is going to be joining us. She's the newest Reform MP. Right now, let's talk to Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO commander and former Director General at the Ministry of Defence. Chris, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Reading this morning about Keir Starmer's latest plans, it doesn't seem to be using British growth to grow the defence industry. He said a couple of weeks ago he was going to have many thousands of jobs created. He was going to, have a load of submarines ordered. He was going to order a lot more military equipment, more ballistic missiles, more munitions factories, all of that. He seems to be buying some planes in from America instead.
Mike, to tell you the truth, I get confused with all the pious intentions and the lack of capability, to tell you the truth. This is a very demonstrative exercise in rebalancing our nuclear capability. It's something we've spoken about before, that Trident alone is not sufficient to provide a deterrent to the likes of Russia and China, who already deploy these tactical nuclear weapons. We're going back essentially to what we did during the Cold War and said, look, you won't know at what level we'll enter a nuclear confrontation, whether it will be at the tactical level or the strategic. And I support the actual intention behind it. I'm surprised they've gone for the F-35A, which is a land-based aircraft. Yeah. We could have gone for the F-35C, which is a similar type of aircraft. You can put it on carriers, and you can also refuel it from our Voyager aircraft as well. So somebody hasn't done the calculations. They've just gone, I'm afraid, for the upfront promotional stuff. And more broadly, what we're not seeing is a program route to any sort of capability that's going to enhance our defence capability. All we're seeing is lots of theory, lots of justified information about the threats. But to tell you the truth, the more I hear about GDP being spent on defence, the more I think it's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Well, it's a very long way off, isn't it, as well?
Well, yeah, it's like saying to Hitler in 1937, we're going to rearm now, but could you wait until 1947 before you do anything?
Yeah.
So that's not going to really make any difference to how China and Russia feel about things. But my biggest problem, Mike, is that when you start droning on about GDP figures, you're simply saying to arms manufacturers, just get on with it, charge us what you like, the coffers are open, and we're monopoly suppliers supplying to monopoly customers. What we should be saying is, here are the threats, here are the capabilities that we need, this is what it's going to cost. Now let's take a risk in terms of time and cost-benefit analysis. Until I hear that, for example, we've got an air defense system that can cope with the same ballistic missiles that are being used in the Middle East or indeed against Ukraine, I'm not going to take this government seriously.
No, exactly right. I mean, I'm reading in Telegraph this morning, the new jets will be based at RAF Marham and will have to operate from land-based airstrips, as you said, because apparently they don't have the technology to be used on Royal Navy aircraft carriers, which seems insane to me. And they also say they're not drawn on where it will store the thermonuclear gravity bombs the jets will carry, which will also be brought in, of course, from the United States as well. We've got a little clip, actually. Let me play you this. This is what Starmer said 3 weeks ago on defence jobs.
I can announce today that we're going to build at least 6 new munitions factories in the United Kingdom, generating over 1,000 jobs. We will build thousands of new long-range weapons in the United Kingdom to boost European deterrence, supporting around 800 more jobs.
Well, presumably, again, as you said, Chris, that's all very much on the never, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I support these long-range weapons, but I can tell you now, the technology is being pushed out into the 2030s. We need them now.
Yeah.
They're available. If we're going to send a message to our opponents that we're serious, we have to do what was done in 1937. We have to start actually building the equivalent of Spitfires, Hurricanes, and the radar system that was built then. That sends signals to our opponents that we're serious. It deters conflict. That's the important thing. Right now, all we're getting is we're eating the air with empty promises. Just look at the faces of the people behind Keir Starmer.
Right.
I didn't see any enthusiasm there for what he was saying. And I'm afraid in every other area of this government, you get lots of promises, and nothing ever happens. And I'm afraid I'm very sceptical about what's going to happen. There's lots of creative accounting going on. So basically dealing with online harms is part of the defence budget that we're going to see. There's all sorts of peripheral stuff that has no relationship to defence capability whatsoever.
No, exactly right. And the other thing we've learned over the past week or so, of course, is that Keir Starmer and Britain are very much out of the loop when it comes to military action around the world by our greatest allies. The Americans made a decision to bomb Iran. They went ahead and did it on the early hours of Sunday morning. They clearly didn't sort of consult Britain. They might well have given us a heads up just before it happened, but it doesn't look as though Keir Starmer knew anything about it, because the previous few days he was saying, I don't think Donald Trump's going to do anything like that. And clearly Israel didn't inform us when they decided to attack Iran either. So Britain is kind of in a kind of no man's land right now, diplomatically, aren't we?
I mean, to be fair, Mike, the fact that Keir Starmer was saying that was part of the deception plan, that nothing was going to happen.
Well, I'm surprised he hasn't. I'm surprised he hasn't claimed that, but I don't believe it.
But in fact, it worked out very well in that sense. But you're right, we're out of the loop. They don't trust us anymore because we give off too many sort of insecure signals. We give away the Chagos Islands. I mean, what is that about? You know, the most important military base on the planet. We've given it away. We give off all sorts of signs that we're very flaky on defence and, actually using force. And the big problem we got, Mike, is we've got a whole generation of politicians. It's not just Labour who do not know how to threaten and use force as part of statecraft. And the Americans do, and they can see that we're wishy-washy about it.
Yeah, well, we've got a little clip, I think, from Keir Starmer this morning, speaking at the NATO summit over in the Netherlands. Have a look.
For me, as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, it's important that we play an integral part, because the safety and security of our citizens in the UK is my first duty as Prime Minister. I take that extremely seriously. And in relation to our contribution, the increased defence spend, obviously that goes to our security and our safety. But it also is the engine of growth and jobs in the United Kingdom. So this is a very important meeting of the summit.
He keeps saying it's an engine of growth, right? But he's buying it from America. And people said to me this morning, Chris, that this might have been part of the deal that Trump made him do, which is a trade deal trade-off. It's like, all right, we'll take the tariffs off your cars. You better buy some military equipment from us.
Mike, the biggest problem is, even though I was looking at the clip there, I'm thinking I don't believe what you say.
No.
Up as you go along. We cannot defend the country with sound bites.
Yeah. It's really true. Great to talk to you, as ever. Rear Admiral Chris Parry, thank you very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Mark on delivery drivers.
Just on these food delivery bikes, I mean, how hard is it for the government to find and arrest these people that are obviously illegals? Just go to any McDonald's in any high street and you'll find at least 10 to 20 of them waiting outside. It'll be quite easily just to do daily stings outside these places and easily arrest them, no problem. And in the words of Donald Trump, they don't know what the bleep they're doing.
Well, I've got an idea for you. How about this for a real zinger, right? To break down the Home Office's reluctance to arrest anyone. Just order some food, right? When they turn up, you go, "You're nicked, mate. Thanks very much indeed. I'll take the free chicken." Because how is it possible that only the Sun and Chris Philp and us and everybody else knows what's going on? The government doesn't. And they don't know where to look for these people. This one from James, who says, "Mike, why not seize the bank accounts of the people offering to handle the illegal transactions of these bike delivery services?" Well, there's that. And also Michael says the illegal migrants should be placed in detention centres with no benefits other than basic board and lodging until deported. They are criminals and should be treated accordingly. I agree with you. They shouldn't be here. And they certainly shouldn't be making money, and they certainly shouldn't be living for free, and they certainly should, if they are working and they are officially here, be paying taxes, which none of them are. So I'm afraid it's soft touch Britain once again. And I don't know how this is going to be stopped, because it's taking over the country now. It's absolutely outrageous. Coming up, Sarah Pochin's going to join us, the newest Reform MP. That's all next after the news. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week, the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people, because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humsley Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar.
Hello,
and
lady.
unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's plank of the week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 9. We are into the final hour of the show, and of course we've got plenty to do. The front page is all covered very much with stories about this purchase of jets to carry nuclear warheads that we are buying from the Americans. The 12 F-35A fighter planes, which will be fitted with nuclear weapons. They will be based apparently in an airfield not anywhere near RAF Bryce Norton, thank you very much indeed, but instead RAF Marham. They will have to operate from land-based airstrips because they lack the technology to use the Royal Navy's aircraft carriers. We just heard from the former NATO commander Chris Parry there, Rear Admiral Chris Parry, that it seems to be a rather ridiculous deal, because why on earth would you buy those when you could have bought the rather more flexible and the better equipped other planes that they could use on aircraft carriers? And the answer to that, I think, is because this is part of the deal that Donald Trump made Keir Starmer do. You know, don't forget, Keir Starmer, the worst negotiator in the history of negotiating, because part of the trade deal, presumably, from the American side was, all right, I tell you what, we'll give you tariff-free cars entry into the US, so you can sell your Jags and your Rolls-Royces and your Bentleys and your Aston Martins, but you need to buy some military planes from us, and then that will pay. We will all do that deal. And for heaven's sake, we now know that Keir Starmer's words were weasel words when he said, basically, we're going to use the military hardware build-up to stimulate growth in the country, in the UK. We're going to create jobs. We're going to build factories. We're going to build submarines. We're going to build all sorts of different pieces of military hardware. Well, instead, they appear to be buying it all from America. Also, on the front page of The Sun this morning, part 2 of the Deliveroo fiasco. Crackdown on food app illegals is going on. Off your bike is the headline. It says migrants working illegally as food delivery riders from asylum hotels are to be arrested and have their bikes seized in a major crackdown. But we don't know exactly when they're starting to do it. We know that Angela Eagle, the Home Office Minister, is going to go down and visit the headquarters of Deliveroo, of Just Eat and of Uber Eats over the next week or so. But meanwhile, asylum seekers are continuing to brazenly cycle out of taxpayer-funded hotels. If you've been ordering any of this stuff this morning, I'd love to hear from you. You know, who turned up? Was it the person they said they were? Everybody knows where these people are. It's not that difficult, surely, to round them up and get them kicked out of the country. We're going to talk to Sarah Pochin coming up, Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby, of course, the newest Reform MP. This is a woman who knows a thing or two about cracking down on illegal migrants, because she knows that we have to do something. Because, quite frankly, this government hasn't got a clue. Just ask Donald Trump.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Absolutely incredible. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Carol in Shoreham by Sea says this: Mike, I'm fuming. How can that cretinous moron of a Prime Minister have the audacity to claim the safety of the people of the UK is his main priority when he's allowing thousands of unknowns, possible criminals, into our country every week? He is a complete liar. What an absolute disgrace. And Gordon says, morning, Mike, I live near a hotel in the City of London. Local women have been told not to walk or cycle down the road where it's based. Instead of dealing with the people making us unsafe, they just tell women not to go where they should be allowed to go. It's pathetic. It really is pathetic. Let's talk to Sarah Pochin, newest Reform MP for Runcorn and Helsby. Sarah, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Very good to see you. Fine. Thank you very much indeed. I'll stop calling you the newest MP soon, because I mean, pretty soon that'll start
I actually was wondering how long it was going to take for you to
I
drop
don't know. It's a bit like the Happy New Year thing, isn't it? I don't know when you stop doing it.
Okay, I give you permission to stop now.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll stop now. This story in The Sun has got everybody talking. They started it yesterday. I mean, everybody kind of knew that there was a suspicion that some of these characters working for these delivery companies were illegals and they were working on the black market. But the extent of it seems to be that almost all of them are.
Look, you know, this is so out of control. So the government has lost control of them coming in. It's now lost control of the labour market. And let's not forget that whilst these illegal immigrants are working for these delivery companies and putting the hours in, earning a lot of money, at the same time, we, you and me, the British taxpayer, are giving them free accommodation, free mobile phones, free driving lessons. It doesn't matter what you ask about, they get it for free. Whereas we have to pay for all of that. So they're getting a win-win here. They are getting paid by the Deliveroo. They're taking, or whoever the company might be, I shouldn't just say that, but they are taking our money to house them, so they have no expenses. But also, Mike, they're taking jobs from British people.
Yeah, they really are. And people have been ringing up the show today, Sarah, and saying, you know, isn't it great? You know, I pay my mortgage, I struggle to make ends meet, I get all my electricity bills coming in, they go up and up and up and up, everything goes up. You know, I get charged to drive my car wherever it goes, I get charged to park my car. These people are getting literally everything for free. Not only are they getting a free accommodation, they're getting free food, they're getting free NHS healthcare, they're getting, as you say, free phones. They're now working as well, not paying tax. You know, we said just the other day, people in this country are sick to death of it. They've had enough. This is final straw time, isn't it?
It really is, and I find everywhere I go now, when I get off the station, when I go home, there's a migrant hotel. So all outside the station that I use, you know, there's migrants just around. I nearly got run off the pavement last week by a migrant on a bike that was just couldn't care less, nearly ran me over. And it's just everywhere you go, this is happening. When I go to the constituency, you know, it's everywhere. And yet again, you know, every time I raise this issue, I'm accused by the Labour Party of, you know, raising something that isn't happening. Well, they are in such denial, Mike. And I'll tell you something about my constituency very quickly. I've been raising this issue all through the campaign, all of the issues about the jobs and the accommodation and everything else that's happening and the threat to people on the streets. And do you know what? The Labour Police Crime Commissioner and the Labour leader of the council put a press release out saying Sarah Pochin MP is lying, she's misleading the people. Well, I went back to them and I said, right, bring it on, guys. I can give you the crime numbers, I can give you the CCTV, and, you know, they'll regret taking me on, Mike, because we've got the evidence. You know, I was a magistrate for 20 years. I wouldn't be making these claims unless I could back them up. Right. But it's the Labour councils that are in denial. Look what's going on in Portsmouth. Yeah. You know, there's a whistleblower down in Portsmouth, and when one comes forward, they'll all come forward. This is a national problem that has been brushed under the carpet by the Tory government and now the Labour government.
And it's reached that point, hasn't it, when you sort of try and keep the lid on something for so long that the lid's coming off now, and there is some really horrible stuff that we're going to find underneath that lid.
We are, and not only that, the British people are so frustrated that you know, they are talking about it now instead of like not saying about these issues because they're worried about being called racist or whatever. The fact is now everyone's had enough. I get into a taxi, they want to talk to me about it. They are desperate to talk about it because they have had enough. Everywhere I go, people want to say, I was at a function last night. People are coming up saying, thank you. We need you to raise these issues. We cannot, this country will not be recognisable in 4 years' time. If this Labour government lasts this long, let's hope they self-combust in between because they're doing a jolly good job of it. But and actually the benefits bill coming up on Tuesday, that'll be an interesting one for them, won't it? But if they last 4 years, then what is this country going to look like, Mike?
I know, it's shocking. I mean, we'll come back to the benefits bill problem for Starmer in a minute, but I mean, here's the other thing that people worry about. And Starmer goes to the NATO conference, he stays away from Britain, he goes to Canada to talk about the G7. He doesn't have his finger on the pulse internationally either, by the way, but he talks about being secure at home and being strong abroad. We're not secure at home. We don't know who's here. We don't know what they're doing here. We know that there are some people who have come to this country by small boats who are terrorists. We know that some of them are spies from Iran. We know that Iran has now got us as part of the kind of great Satan of countries that they want to attack. How safe is this country for people to even live in at this moment?
It's not safe on every level because, first of all, we can't defend ourselves. And yes, they're talking about these planes with nuclear weapons, but as you pointed out, they're having to take off from the land because the warships aren't compatible with the planes. So the planning, the failure of planning by the Tory government and this Labour government is beyond belief and has put this country in a high-risk situation. And I believe, and Reform believe, that one of the first functions of a government is to protect its people. Well, they can't protect us at the moment. No. And so that's on a national scale. Now, on an international scale, we know that the UK was completely kept out, for example, of the recent attacks on Iran, which I fully support and Reform fully support.
Which apparently Labour doesn't. They don't seem to know whether they support it or not, do they?
Yesterday in the chamber, the questions not yesterday, the day before, sorry. I lose track of days, Mike. There's so much happening.
I know.
But the point is, the questions to the government, do you support this action? They would not say that they supported this action. It's an absolute disgrace. I asked a question of the Foreign Secretary. Did you see his reply?
Unbelievable.
He was so rude. He didn't answer my question at all. Right. And I don't think that should be allowed.
No.
How is it that in the parliaments of all parliaments that we're so proud about, in theory, well, there's nothing to be proud of at the moment, because every time I ask a question, they laugh, they jeer. I can take all that. I'm tough. I don't care about that. But the British people deserve to hear the answer to my question, and that's not happening. That's not democracy.
No, it's
Why
not.
isn't that
And
happening?
quite frankly, Sarah, it just makes them look idiotic and stupid and very, very undemocratic. I mean, at least you get to ask a question. They don't even come on this show because they're too frightened to be asked questions that they can't answer. And so I mean, I don't know whether I'm ever going to see David Lammy, but I would have some very tough questions for him if I could ask him. And
Well,
the question
I can tell you.
And the question you asked him...
You won't answer them, Mike.
No, I know. But the question you asked him, perfectly legitimate, was there a problem because of the fact that the Chagos Islands might have had to be involved, in which case China would have had to be informed, in which case the whole gaffe would have been blown. Perfectly reasonable question. He didn't want to answer it, probably. That's why he made a joke of it.
And the point is, we have paid, we're paying 13 billion, is it, for this Chagos deal? Exactly. And we can't use them. We can't use those islands because in the deal, Lammy has negotiated the fact that we have to tell Mauritius every time we want to take off from Diego Garcia. It's really worrying on an international level and on a national level. And back to your point about Keir Starmer, of course he's not here in the country. He's not here again this week for PMQs, which I'm obviously going to shortly. And yet again, second week running, where is he? And you know why he's not here? Because he does not want to answer these questions, whether it's international questions or whether it's questions about what's going on in this country. He doesn't want to answer them. And I know from the two questions I've put to him already directly in the chamber, he has not answered. He has not addressed, and he brushes aside in his chauvinistic way. Well, it's got to stop because the British people, the Parliament belongs to them. I was elected to represent British people, and everybody in that chamber was elected to represent the British people, and they're not getting answers to the questions.
No, we're still waiting for an answer as to what he's going to do about RAF Bryce Norton, because we might be buying these, 12, 80 million pound, super duper nuclear jets from America, but if we park them up in any RAF station anywhere likely, they're going to be, going to be attacked by activists because they can just walk through the fences apparently.
What does that say about the security of this country? That a group like that, a dangerous group, can walk into what should be one of the most highly secure air bases in the country and do that? Oh, and by the way, did you read that Yvette Cooper has to bring some bill or some vote to Parliament to actually declare Palestine Action a terrorist organisation? Oh, hang on, she's the Home Secretary. You just ban them. You just arrest them and you just deport them.
I mean, they can do it when they want to do it to people that they don't like, but obviously they like the Palestine Action Group. In fact, one of their MPs said, "We are all Palestine Action," on her thing the other day. And I said, good, well, then we'll lock you up as well.
Well, it's really frightening. And on the subject of locking up, look, the two-tier justice, I know it's very topical at the moment. Look at what's happening with Lucy Connolly.
Yes. Yeah, we spoke to Richard Tice, your colleague, yesterday. He was going to see her. He's now saying today that she's been mistreated in prison. Absolutely outrageous.
Well, this is what happens. And as I say, with my 20 years in the judicial system, I can fully believe it, sadly. The state of our prisons is such that I honestly don't believe that you can be sure as a serving prisoner to be treated, let's just say, fairly. And I think that woman, Lucy, is probably suffering quite badly in terms of they will try their utmost to make sure she cannot qualify for parole. Now, I've said quite publicly as a magistrate of 20 years that the sentence she received was absolutely ridiculous. If anyone is a perfect example of someone that can be rehabilitated in the community, she had no previous record. This sentence is unbelievable. I mean, shocking beyond belief. I cannot believe that it hasn't been overturned. I can't believe that it was given in the beginning. But the point is, yes, in prison, she's been manhandled, she's been treated badly, she's been forced to the ground when, for no reason whatsoever. This poor woman, she's got to hold her nerve. And, if she's listening to this, my message to her would be, hold your nerve, be brave, be strong, because, yes, what you did was stupid, and I don't condone it for a minute, but the punishment that she's received is bang out of order. And now they're going to do everything they can to not let her get parole. And Mike, it's frightening. It's really frightening.
Well, they're deliberately trying to provoke her, aren't they, into doing something or saying something. I mean, Richard reported that she's got bruises on her wrists. He saw them. I have no reason to disbelieve what he says. She was also put on a ward which was meant for very violent and sexual criminals, which is not where she should be at all.
It's utter intimidation. And as I say, my message to her is just keep your nerve. It must. I can't imagine what it. Obviously, I've been in prisons, but I can't imagine what it must be like for her. And what's happening now is way beyond the crime, and that is not justice. And I've said before, what's happening with our justice system is wrong. We're meant to be the shining example to the world of a justice system, and in fact, a system that many countries in the world adopted as their own. But we now are letting ourselves down with this two-tier justice. And like you say, where are these guys that caused how many millions of pounds worth of damage at Bryce Norton? What's happening to them?
I know.
That's not gone very quiet. Where are they?
I know, absolutely. It has gone very quiet. Just one final thing on this vote on Tuesday, which is supposedly going to be the welfare bill vote. It could well be that there's a massive rebellion against Keir Starmer. And I'm sorry to say that I've read this morning that he might be considering, if it looks like he's going to lose it, postponing it until the autumn, which again would be very undemocratic, because I think he should be hung out to dry if he does that.
And it wouldn't surprise me at all, because this Prime Minister U-turns, as we've seen. He's weak. He knows he lost the by-election that I came in on Runcorn and House because of things like the winter fuel allowance and this particular reform that he's trying to bring in. And the problem with this reform is I think we probably all... Nobody, in all the British people, nobody wants to see people that are taking, taking the mickey out of the benefit system. But the point is this hasn't been properly thought through or consulted on. And Reform obviously do not want to see anybody taking sickness benefit and this PIP welfare that doesn't deserve it. But what about all the people that are going to lose their benefits and they do deserve it? How are they going to manage? And again, he's targeting his own. It's ill thought through. He'll either U-turn or he will pull it because he does not have the courage of his convictions. So I guarantee you, like with the council elections that he pulled because he knew he'd lose, he will pull this, and it's undemocratic. This government is undemocratic and it needs to go.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sarah, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Sarah Poaching there, Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Carol from Shoreham by Sea says, Mike, again, how good is Sarah Poaching? She's just what this country and Reform UK needs. She's great, identifying and saying exactly what needs to be done. Go, Sarah, she says. Thank you very much indeed. 9:20.
Visited the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation base that's distributing aid, one of their 4 bases in Gaza. Gets aid into Gazan civilians without being controlled by Hamas. That's the entire idea of it. Hamas have seized control of almost all the aid that's gone into Gaza up to now. I certainly didn't see any sign whatsoever of the IDF when I was at this base. They're on the periphery. They're maintaining sort of wider scale security. The bases are being secured themselves by the GHF, basically by armed American civilians.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:23. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here then. Let's get a voice note from James on Smashing the Gangs.
Morning, Mike. Great show, as usual. James, who's normally in Liverpool, but over in sunny Turkey at the moment. Sat with a few people last night and we were talking about smashing the gangs and putting more pounds in your pocket. And none of the Brits here feel like he's smashing any gangs, couldn't even smash an egg. And everyone's saying, well, I did have some pounds in my pocket, but now I only have pence. What an absolute muppet the guy is.
I know, absolutely incredible. I wonder what Donald Trump would say. What would he say?
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Absolutely right. Susan says, this morning, Mike, I was literally knocked over by one of these electric bikes driven by a young man in Gosforth High Street in Newcastle. He was looking at his phone, obviously looking for the address where he was delivering. The pavement is about 4 foot wide and the road has been halved by the council to create 2 cycle lanes that hardly anybody uses. Councils and this government are complicit in the loss of our society, values, culture. I'm selling my house and giving every penny to my son to get out. And I'm afraid you speak for an awful lot of people, Susan. Ian in Cheshire says, these migrants doing deliveries are really taking the pee. I have it on good authority that they are charging their bikes for free at the asylum hotels. Well, of course they are. You know, I see them every single day in London, and they drive at high speed as well. You know, some of these electric bikes are doing 40 miles an hour down a bus lane or down a cycle lane, and they are literally mowing people down because they're going too quick, because they're not properly regulated. Electric bikes are not supposed to go that fast. Let's talk to James Sunderland, former Tory MP, former Colonel, I suppose, as well, current Colonel. James, very good morning to you.
Hello, Mike. Good morning.
Good to see you. Keir Starmer says that we're going to build up our defences to working towards 5% of GDP by 2035, which seems a very long way off. He's at NATO today. He said that he was going to use British money, British expertise, and we were going to create British jobs to grow the economy through defence. But he just bought a load of planes from America.
It's bonkers. I can recall barely a year ago sitting in the chamber where Labour wouldn't commit to anything above 2% GDP for defence. And they're now talking about 5%. I mean, I personally welcome it because I'm a defence-leaning former MP. I'm back in the fold now. So I think it's the right thing to do, to be ambitious when it comes to defence spending, particularly when you consider all of the threats at the moment that exist, both sub-threshold, both threshold, both existential. The world's a very dangerous place. But come on, Keir Starmer, stop blowing like the wind, put a marker in the sand and tell us what you really think.
Well, exactly, that would be good. Just let me interrupt you for a second, James, if I may. Donald Trump's just arrived at NATO at the summit. He's just speaking. Let's have a look.
Gone on to another journey because there was a little bit of a violation, and I said, you got to get them back. And they came back, and it was a great thing, and it's going very well.
Mr. President, what is your response to the Foreign Minister saying he still wants to enrich nuclear?
Hello, Katie. She's so great, this one. Any question she asks, I'll answer. Well, maybe I better not say that. What was your question?
What is your response to the Iranian Foreign Minister continuing to say Iran will enrich uranium and pursue nuclear weapons?
Well, I don't know if they've said that, but I'll tell you, the last thing they want to do is enrich anything right now. They want to recover. And we won't let that happen, number one. Militarily, we won't. I think we'll end up having somewhat of a relationship with Iran. I see it. Look, I've had a relationship over the last 4 days. They agreed to the ceasefire. And it was a very equal agreement. They both said, that's enough. They both said it. But no, they won't do that. The last thing they want to do, Katie, is enrich. They're not looking to... They're not... Can you imagine after all that, they're going to say, oh, let's go and do a bomb. You know, there could be a day in the future, and then somebody else taking our place will be saying, don't do it. And maybe they won't do it as well, I don't know. But they're not going to have a bomb, and they're not going to enrich. And we believe all of the stuff is down there. We don't think they had nearly the time, because to get that out is a very difficult thing. It's not like moving a package or taking this carpet up and moving it. It's very difficult. It's very dangerous to do. We believe it's all down there. We had a tremendous victory, a tremendous hit, and because of that, I don't think they would have been down there, because they knew we were coming. When they know we're coming, they're not going to be down in that 30 stories underground. So no, I think it was just a tremendous victory for everybody, including Iran. Look, they've got a country, and they've got oil, and they're very smart people, and they can come back. Israel got hit very hard, especially the last couple of days. Israel was hit really hard. Those ballistic missiles, boy, they took out a lot of buildings. And they've been great. Bibi Netanyahu should be very proud of himself. And they've really been great. But they're not going to be building bombs for a long time.
Mr. President, what's your reaction?
Trump there speaking in the NATO summit in the Netherlands there. He's just so straight to the point, James, isn't he? I mean, it's such a contrast to Keir Starmer, who can't even understand that the people of this country would like to hear him say, we respect and support what America did in Iran. He couldn't even do that. Yeah,
there is some ambivalence with Trump, of course, and a lot of unpredictability. But his decision to bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran was very bold. US president's been threatening it for a decade or more now. He's done it. I think it was the right thing to do for a whole variety of reasons that we can discuss if we like. But I've met Trump. He is quite a character. He's very forthright, very direct. He's a big man. You can't mistake him. And he's done it, and let's see what happens now.
Yeah, but isn't it ridiculous, though, that we've got a British government in place currently that can't actually admit to being in favour of what happened by, the action taken by a massive ally of ours, the US government?
To put my cards on the table, we're living in a very dangerous age right now, and I think that the UK does need a leader who pins his colours to the mast and says it as it is.
Yeah.
But Keir Starmer sits on the fence. I have no idea what he's thinking now in terms of what happened over the weekend in Iran. Does he support it? Does he not support it? Right. Was he in some way complicit? Was he not complicit? What was the legal advice? What was the effect of that? And I think that we need a Prime Minister who wears his heart on his sleeve, who says it as it is, and who does not sit on the fence.
Right. And, I mean, it's not asking that much, really, is it? And what do you make of, you're a former military man, what happened last week at Bryce Norton? The fact that, people could so easily gain access to what should have been a restricted area, an RAF airbase, where 2 planes were vandalised to the tune of something like 25 million quid by these idiots from Palestine Action. And yet they were able to get in, they were able to daub the paint on the plane, and they were able to get out without anybody seeing them. And I find that absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah, it's a complete joke. I mean, let's be frank, I did 27 years in the army. When I came through the system, we had something called Card Alpha, 3 warnings and you shoot on sight. Yeah. Simple as that. This was, in my view, a terrorist incident. People breaking into a military base. Who knows what other damage they'd caused? They could have placed things on planes. So those planes are now out of action. We've now rendered capability obsolete for the time being. Doesn't work. So in my view, the police have the right to investigate it. These people need bringing to justice. But more importantly, come on, let's get our guarding procedures, let's get our security, our perimeter security sorted out in all of our military bases, particularly with prized assets at Bryce Norton, and get it sorted.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good to talk to you. Colonel James Sunderland, thank you very much indeed, former Tory MP. Donald Trump is now talking at NATO. He's with Mark Rutte, who's, of course, the Secretary-General of NATO. Let's have a listen.
And every one of those tomahawks hit within a foot of where they were supposed to hit, took out a lot of buildings that Israel wasn't able to get. We took them out with tomahawks. We don't even talk about that. This was a devastating attack, and it knocked them for a loop. And if it didn't, they wouldn't have settled. If they had won, if we didn't take it out, they wouldn't have settled. Somebody mentioned that to me last night. If that thing wasn't devastated, they would have never settled. Marco, do you have something to say?
No, first of all, on the stuff about the intelligence, this is what a leaker is telling you the intelligence says. That's the game these people play. They read it, and then they go out and characterize it the way they want it characterized, and they're leakers. This is the game they play. So that's number one. Number two, here's a fact. The conversion facility, which you can't do a nuclear weapon without a conversion facility, we can't even find where it is, where it used to be on the map. You can't even find where it used to be because the whole thing is just blackened out. It's gone.
It's wiped out.
It's wiped out. Then we dropped 12 of the strongest bombs on the planet right down the hole in 2 places. Everything underneath that mountain is in bad shape. And I refer you to the statement of the IAEA, Mr. Grossi. Yes. You know what he said? He said there was Iran, the way it looked the day before the attack, and what their nuclear program looks like now. 2 very different things. They are way behind where they were just 7 days ago. Now, anything in the world can be rebuilt. But now we know where it is, and if they try to rebuild it, we'll have options there as well. But all this leaker stuff, these leakers are professional stabbers. That's what they are. They go out and they read this stuff, and then they tell you what it says against the law, but they characterize it for you in a way that's absolutely false. There's no way Iran comes to the table if somehow nothing had happened. This was complete and total obliteration. They're in bad shape. They are way behind today compared to where they were just 7 days ago because of what the president did.
Marco, can I just alert you to one other aspect? So the great thing is you took out the nuclear capability of Iran.
That was Marco Rubio there, the Secretary of State, speaking after Donald Trump, talking about how they had completely and utterly obliterated Iran's capabilities when it comes to making a nuclear bomb, contrary to what some reports have been saying, which was basically that, the bomb didn't hit everything, didn't damage everything, didn't actually do as much damage as the Donald Trump administration had been saying. That would appear not to be the case. Let's get a voice note now from Mike.
Morning, Mike. Mike in North Yorkshire here, slightly warm today. Listening to your
brilliant show as ever. You seem yourself, as well as Esther, you seem yourself quite het up this morning. I'd just like to say, we need to be looking at the bigger picture of all this with the migrants. It's not just the guys in the dinghies. They're coming in wagons, they're coming across on the ferries, in minibuses with trailers. There's a mass industry of people being shuttled up and down through Europe and exchanged, return journeys of minibuses back across to France, taking them back home when they've earned their money. There's service stations where these exchanges go on, and it's gone on for 20, 30 years. The black economy isn't just the dinghies, so I'd just like to stress that to the people. It's going on right under our noses, and it has for ages.
Right, you're absolutely right. We've had these calls before today that so many people are coming here to work in the black economy because, frankly, the taxes are so high in this country. A lot of people do it. A lot of people probably in this country who are homegrown in this country are doing it, right? And that is also the problem. But you'll never get to the bottom of it unless you start prosecuting people, unless you start arresting people, unless you start deporting people. You know, they're working in prostitution, they're working in all sorts of businesses, they're working in the Turkish barber shops, they're working in nail bars, they're working as taxi drivers, they're working in kebab shops, they're working all over the place, restaurants, you know, the catering industry. You know, there's plenty of people in the black economy. But we are actually inviting these people in, we're giving them the opportunity to have free accommodation. That's the thing that is getting everybody's goat here this morning, because they're not paying even to live anywhere. They don't have to. It's incredible. It's ridiculous. And Dean says this from Oxford: regards to fighter jets, looks like Trump has stitched Starmer up like an absolute kipper. Where are we putting these land-only jets? The Chagos Islands? Laughable. 9:36.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 9:38. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Brad in Cambridge says, when Starmer and Lammy openly disrespect MPs and journalists by refusing to answer their questions, don't they realise that they are actually disrespecting and insulting the electorate? Those questions are being asked on our behalf. And they absolutely are. In the same way that they're absolutely disrespecting the electorate when they refuse to come on this show. Because this is where they should be giving answers to questions that quite a lot of you would like to hear. Let's go back to the NATO summit, though, because Donald Trump's arrived. He's still speaking. He's answering questions. Have a listen.
He's a nice guy. I mean, I'm going to meet him today. I don't know. I assume we're going to be discussing Ukraine.
Yes.
And it seems like it looks like it.
Is there any restart talks there or anything that you might do?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, I've spoken to Putin a lot, and he actually was very nice. He volunteered help on, as you know, on Iran. I said, no, I don't need help on Iran. I need help on Russia. Okay? I said, do me a favor. Help us on Russia, not on Iran. But he was very nice. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk. I think progress is being made. I think great progress is being made on Gaza. I think because of this attack that we made, I think we're going to have some very good news. I was talking to Steve Witkoff, who, by the way, is terrific, and who knows more about this subject than anybody, the subject of what we were just talking about. He was on last night with Jesse and with Laura and with Sean. And boy, Susie has a great take on it. He just explains it so easily. He's really very knowledgeable. But he did tell me that Gaza is very close.
Mr. President, one follow-up on Iran. Both you and Secretary Rubio and Hegseth mentioned the lead. But can you clarify, is the intelligence correct or is the intelligence wrong?
Well, the intelligence was very inconclusive. Okay. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been
Donald
very
Trump
severe.
talking to NATO, saying that they're making some great progress in Gaza, saying they're expected to talk about Ukraine. This is Vladimir Putin's been very helpful. You know, all of that is all going on in the background. Keir Starmer's obviously there as well. We'll bring you details on that as soon as we can. Right now, though, let's cross to Joe Twyman, the founder of Delta Poll, who, of course, is always our man to go to when we need to know what is going on out there in the big wide world. Joe, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. We're going to talk in a minute about a new poll that's come out about disability benefits and what people are thinking about how much money we should be spending on that. But the big story for us this morning, and I just want to mention it to you, Joe, because you might have some info for us, is on the migrants on the front of the Sun today, not just coming here illegally on small boats, not just being put up in hotels at our expense, but now it seems working in the black economy, basically paying their way, but not having to pay any tax, not having to pay any rent, not having to pay anything for any food, getting phones, getting everything for free. People are getting really annoyed about it. What are you seeing in terms of what public opinion actually is right now?
Well, certainly the issue of immigration is something that gets a lot of people very disappointed, to put it mildly, with the political system generally, because it's consistently viewed that not just this government but previous governments have failed to tackle the issue. But in terms of tackling the issue, it's quite a complicated matter. Most people agree that that there should be tighter controls on the number of people coming to this country. But there's also recognition that legal migration is important in a number of areas, most obviously health and social care, right, but also many other areas, particularly areas of the economy where we need more people, right, to work.
Yeah, but those are obviously people who are paying their way, though, as well, because there are people who are coming into the country working, you know, in the tax system, perfectly legally, doing jobs that perhaps need to be done. But this is a very different kettle of fish, this, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. What this speaks to is the issue of fairness. And time and again, in surveys, in focus groups, what you hear is that people believe the current immigration and asylum system isn't fair. Now, whether the reporting that we're hearing today is a true reflection of what's happening across the country, most people reading it will probably believe that it is, and it's stories like that enforce this idea that fairness is not occurring, and the government needs to deal with that, but dealing with that in a way that will actually be perceived to be making a difference is a really difficult task, and one that this government, like the previous government, doesn't seem close to achieving.
No, cool. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because sort of opinions have shifted as they have in what we're also about to talk about, and the public's wish now for higher spending on disability benefits to actually be stopped. You know, that's fallen to a record low. Because people are, again, I think it comes down to fairness. People are seeing what's going on. Everybody understands the welfare state has to have a welfare system and that people sometimes have to get help because they can't work for one reason or another. But I think there's a perception now that there's an awful lot of people who are not working who probably should be working.
Well, what we're seeing with the welfare system, and actually government spending in general, is you have a sizable minority, over a third of people, who believe that the spending should be kept where it is. That's the most popular option when you ask people about increasing spending and increasing taxes, or keeping things where they are, or reducing spending and taxes. You see that most people, the largest number of people rather, believe that things should be kept as they are. But then just below that are the number of people that believe it should be increased. And that's what we're seeing with this particular data around disability spending. The largest proportion of people in that option say that that spending should be increased, but that number has fallen below half for the first time. You then have a sizable proportion who say it should be kept as it is, and only around 1 in 10, 11% in that particular survey, who say that the amount should actually be cut. that's a real problem for Labour, because those divisions are not just among the general public, they're also among Labour supporters.
Right.
And so it's not the case that Labour supporters overwhelmingly favour more spending. Actually, they're pretty divided over whether we should spend more, spend the same amount that we do at the moment.
Yeah, and that's a big problem in Parliament as well, because, I mean, that split would appear to be down the middle for Labour MPs as well. There's an awful lot of Labour MPs who are looking like they're going to rebel on Tuesday if that vote does go ahead, which could be a real problem for Starmer, and an even bigger problem for Rachel Reeves.
Yeah, that's right. The general public does not like parties that are divided. It's that simple. And really, it doesn't matter what they're divided over, but a public division like this over a subject that should be, at least on paper, home turf for the Labour Party illustrates the difficulty that they're facing.
Yeah, absolutely right. Joe, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Joe Twyman there, founder of Delta Poll, with the latest survey. The latest survey is basically showing that public wishing for higher spending on disability benefits has fallen to a record low because people are up against it. People are sick to the back teeth of watching migrants coming into this country and taking money out of the system, not only in benefits but also now in payment for jobs that they're doing on the black market under the table without paying any tax. People are fed up with that because every single penny that ordinary people now have, or working people as Keir Starmer would call them, every single penny that they have is being eaten away by increasing costs for things like energy, increasing costs for things like petrol, increasing costs for things like food, and increasing costs for things like just everyday items, things that you have to buy for your kids, you know, clothes that you have to buy for school. Everything's going up in price. And people on benefits don't feel the effect of that. And people who are migrants who are getting free stuff don't feel the effects of that either. It's just the working people of this country that Keir Starmer says he cares about that are taking it in the neck. Let's get a voice note from Alan on the war footing.
Morning, Mike. Alan from Swansea. Starmer said we're on a war footing. With who? You know what I mean? He's importing God knows what every day. Thousands of unvetted, young, fighting-age men coming in here. And this clown, we're on a war footing with Russia. Russia's not the threat. We've got a threat on our own doorstep made by this clown in number 10. Unbelievable. It's just all scare tactics. I can see through it. Garbage.
Garbage is right, Alan. Absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, the war footing maybe should be used more for what's going on at home rather than what's going on abroad. I think Keir Starmer is now speaking at the NATO summit. Let's have a look, shall we?
For me, as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, it's important that we play an integral part because the safety and security of our citizens in the UK is my first duty as Prime Minister. I take that extremely seriously. And in relation to our contribution, the increased defence spend, obviously that goes to our security and our safety. But it also is the engine of growth and jobs in the United Kingdom. So this is a very important meeting of the summit.
This is a very important meeting of the summit. Yeah, or it's a very important summit of the meeting. Or it's a very important summit. Or it's a very important meeting. Or the safety of all people in Britain is very important to me. That's why I'm not in Britain at all, and wasn't there last week either. And I don't know if I'm going to be there next week. How about you come back to Britain and tell us what you actually think and what you actually believe, and whether you actually back America, and whether you actually agree that America did the right thing by attacking Iran, and whether you actually have any foreign policy at all worth a fag end. Because I don't think you do. It's 9:48.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
you can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I
This
haven't
is
got
not one.
time. Tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people, then we can solve that problem like that.
Won't be surprised to know I disagree.
Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted, laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about
And
this.
actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 9:51. Julie Hartley-Greer will be here in just about 7 or 8 minutes or so. Morning, Mike. I've no doubt reform will be our next government. What worries me is the mess they will have to clear up after this sorry excuse for a party, says Brian. Sally says, morning, Mike. Luckily, we don't have food deliveries where I live, but I don't understand why people would want an illegal migrant coming to your home. Well, I don't think that's the choice. People make the choice to get something delivered. You never know who's bringing it. But now, more and more increasingly, it's likely to be somebody illegal. Mel in Swansea says, Mike, get him out. He's a joke. Surely, close the bloody borders, then Starmer. If you say the security of the British people is paramount, great show, Mike. Keep putting the pressure on everything that's wrong in the country. Well, there's plenty wrong in the country, not least, of course, what is one of the things that we talk about here all the time, and it is Britain's broken borders. And they're broken more than ever this morning as we talk about the front page of The Sun this morning. Alp Mehmet, chairman of Migration Watch, wrote on page 10 of The Sun this morning about the illegal delivery drivers being a scam that would be worthy of Del Boy. Have a look.
It's all so easy. The traffickers know that they will get them here and into jobs almost within minutes of arrival. And that is what sticks in everyone's craw. The government, when it was going to do something about it, they told us how much they were going to stop it on, how they're going to stop it. They were going to smash the gangs. Right. We haven't heard very much about that in recent days, have we? Since they came into office, nearly 42,000 have crossed the channel illegally that we know about. Right. Since the beginning of this year, nearly 18,500 have crossed. It's 50% more than it was in 2022 when we had 46,000 by the end of the year. If this continues, by the end of this year, we could be getting something in the region of around 60,000 people crossing the channel. It's a disgrace, really, and the government should be ashamed. The minister responsible, Dame Angela Eagle, she actually has said, really, is it going on? I'd better have a word with the companies here. Now, why haven't they done that already? What they should be doing, and should have been doing for some time, is picking up these people. Perfectly easy, as everyone has shown over the last few days, it's perfectly easy to locate them, pick them up, lock them up, say to them, you're never going to be granted asylum and you're leaving at the first opportunity. Also, make the companies more responsible. Why do they allow the selling on of accounts that they've dished out? Why don't they check people more carefully?
Right. I mean, they claim that they do. They claim that they do, but they obviously aren't doing it well enough.
They don't, Mike. It's simply, there's no evidence there that they're doing it. That's the problem. They can get away with it. If you were to punitive measures really is what's required with regard to the companies. You're not going to get away with taking on people who are working illegally, and that seems to be forgotten, that they are working without permission. They're not supposed to be working, and yet Deliveroo, Uber Eats, and the rest of them are making, what, 15 billion quid a year is what is the turnover is. There's huge money, and we're just simply standing back and letting them get away with
And
it.
people have been in touch with us. I mean, Mark has sent me this on Twitter saying, don't forget, Mike, we also are paying for them to charge their electric bikes on the hotel's electric bill, which is another thing we're giving them for free. But also, people are telling me that, you know, forget about just the people working for these food delivery companies. They're working as taxi drivers, they're working in, you know, Turkish barber shops, they're working in nail bars, they're working as prostitutes, they're working all sorts of illegal businesses in this country. The black economy is thriving as a result of all these illegal migrants who are coming here.
And we give them a bit of pocket money as well. Of nearly 50 quid a week.
Yeah, well, I'm getting calls today from people saying, that's great, isn't it? You know, I've got to pay my mortgage, I've got to pay my taxes, I've got to pay VAT on all the food that I buy. These guys are getting everything for free, and now they're able to work as well without having to pay any tax whatsoever.
Well, really, is it any wonder that people think that whenever this government says we're going to do something about it, that the opposite happens? They actually end up encouraging people to cross the channel. They end up encouraging people to stay on illegally because we won't do anything about it. We won't remove them. And until we change our laws and say that those who come in illegally cannot stay, and indeed anyone who breaks the law is going to be removed. That's what we need to do.
That is indeed what we need to do. That's Alp Mehmet there talking from Migration Watch a little bit earlier on in the show. Let's get a voice note from Dean on delivery drivers.
Hi Mike, great show. I own a restaurant and use Uber. When the order comes through and it's ready, you get a photo of the driver collecting the food. I cannot remember the last time the driver matched the photo. It's criminal. We report it to Uber and nothing is done. Come to my restaurant on any night of the week and you can catch thousands of these people. It's ridiculous.
And let's get a voice note now from Dave.
Yeah, Mike, Dave at Manchester. I've just got one popped into my head there. So these electric bikes that are being used to make £1,000 a week, are they being charged, hundreds of them being charged in the hotels on the taxpayer's bill? So they're being charged up and we're paying for it while they get the £1,000 a week. Great here, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not only that they're getting a free broom, it's not only that they're getting free food and a free phone, it's not only that they're getting a free electric bike and they're getting paid to do something without having to pay any tax, they're also charging the bikes to the electricity in the hotel. So that's all free as well. Absolutely amazing. Elsie Welshpool's got something nice to say. She says, you have the most sensible, common sense, intelligent people that listen, watch and contribute to your show. Well done. It's the only safe place from this mad, mad world. Absolutely right. Talk is the place to be. It's the home of common sense, after all. Julie Hartley-Brewer's here. Very good morning.
It is true. Do you know what? People come up to me in the street and says, thank you for keeping me sane.
I know.
Just thank you for
I know. I had a couple
It's
of them
worrying
yesterday.
if we're the sane people, isn't it?
Well, it really tells you how bad this country
it?
is, how bad it has got for these people. I mean,
I
do you see Keir Starmer babbling away in NATO headquarters there, and suddenly,
Saying
you know,
nothing.
Donald Trump turns up, and it's all very clear. You know, he just makes the points
that's
that he
it.
makes.
I have to say that that text that he read out that Mark Rutte, the NATO's Secretary General, sent to him was sort of, which I think was written by AI. Actually, that's my theory. But it was just like, we all have to bow down. I think everyone needs to start treating you more normally. But you have to do what you have to do. And he's right. Everyone should be spending 5%, but a real 5%.
Yeah.
I don't know where the money's coming from.
Right.
They can't even cut welfare
Well, do you
spending,
suspect,
so it's not
as I
coming from
do,
anywhere
as
else.
well, that this planes deal is all part of the trade deal?
Yes, it is.
Because, you know, Donald Trump went, OK, I'll tell you what, your Jaguars can come over without any 25% tariff, but buy some of my planes.
Military hardware and deals and those sort of it's always part of it,
Mm.
And I'm going to talk a lot today about the welfare reforms because you've got a load of Labour rebels say, oh, no, you can't